And we're live. So if you're coming into our chat today, welcome. This is Pollen Central here. And let me tell you, we have pollen and then some. Tons of pollen. So much so that if I start blowing my nose or having to head out of the room, it's because of all the wonderful pollen. The bees love it. And let me tell you, anyone who says that honey cures allergies for pollen might be stretching the truth just a little bit. I probably eat more honey than anybody you know, or at least pretty high up there on the list. I love it multiple times a day, easily. And I still get allergies this time every year. However, we don't produce honey from this time of the year. The bees are starting to bring in some nectar, but primarily what I think bothers me is the hickory catkins, the oak pollen, the box elder pollens, the elm pollens, several things like that. And most of those don't produce a whole lot of nectar. And even if they did, almost all the nectar that is being brought in right now is being consumed by the bees. And that's not going to make it into our jars of honey. So that's not going to help my allergies out. And it's kind of goes along with the whole eating local honey is good for you or is better for you. Maybe, because if this guy over in North Carolina is producing honey during the goldenrod period, and you're purchasing honey from me, who's right down the road, but mine's spring honey, and you're allergic to goldenrod, and the other guy's selling you goldenrod, it's probably going to help you out a little bit more. So, anyways, there's a lot of variables there. So, welcome again, everybody. In I hope your spring is off to a good start. Things have been busy, insanely busy here, but we are doing good. We're just busier than a one-armed paper hanger. All right, Thomas asks, can I put a frame of brood with its nurse bees into another deep to build it up? Will the bees from the frame accept the new queen in the weak hive? And especially if you are, pulling frames of bees like from a colony that has a lot of larvae that's really healthy, a lot of nurse bees. That's in one of the videos I did recently. I took that frame, I shook it off to the side. The forager bees fly back to the hive. The nurse bees will go over and merge with that queen. No problem, especially this time of the year when there's pollens and resources coming into the hive. I don't find any issues with that at all. I do it all the time. So yes, I combine bees constantly. Ever heard of fruitless mulberry? The tree shoots pollen off at. No, I don't know anything about fruitless mulberries. So what we have going on right now is the fringed phacelia, and we call it the snowflowers here. I mean, there are just miles around here of creek banks and half shaded areas. It'll get in full sun occasionally, but most of the time it's in half sun, half shade, and even full shade, just maybe a trickle of sun coming through the trees. And it is a wonderful plant. And we also have some of the invasive species, the autumn olive tree, in certain bee yards that are producing nectar. But I really love the snowflowers. They are just absolutely gorgeous. We'll try to get a picture and post those on my Facebook page. I do a lot of things on Facebook. If you guys do that, you can follow me on there, and I post sometimes good deals that I see or just things that you can't do on YouTube. I'll post there, but also other people share with me stuff on there occasionally whenever I can get to it. And also we have the wild mustard producing nectar and pollen, but we have pollens like crazy. Our bees don't even know what to do with all the pollen right now. Georgia garden, can I do splits in summer? And yes, some of our best colonies we split after our honey flow. And we split them in July. Now they take them a lot of feed. If you're going to split bees during the dearth period, which in Georgia, most parts of Georgia and Tennessee, you're going to have a dearth period. Depending on where you're at, between parts of June, July, and August until the goldenrod wing stem come into play. And if you are making splits, even if you have a flow going on, whenever you make a split, if you don't move the bees away, those forager bees are going to go back to the original colony. And you could have the world's greatest nectar flow, but there's not a whole lot of bees flying. That might not be quite enough. And you can have nectar coming in and not pollen. You can have a lot of pollen coming in and not a whole lot of nectar. So there's a lot of variables there. Keep an eye on your colony and make sure that they are being fed well. Hey, Jeff Upton, welcome back. Oh man, I really appreciate you putting some fuel in Big Red. That thing, I love that truck, but it has a drinking problem for sure. I do really love that truck. I've always liked older things. I've preferred history over the future um, type of books that I read and things like that. But that truck does have its pros and cons, and the biggest con is the fact that it drinks a lot. The new carb's getting at 7.2. Now, let me tell you, when I had all those frames on the back of it with all that drag, I would be shocked if I got a fraction of that. But, anyways, we still have not unloaded all that. We got all the frames unloaded. I've got the boxes still to unload off of the trailer, but we're doing that at nighttime after we've done bee work for the day. And then we're offloading everything else. It's been fun. I have a small colony in a week queen. Only I have frames of eggs and brood, no drones. Any suggestion? Um, you know, this is how I prefer to do things. Even if you just have two frames of bees and it's good coverage, you should be able to see a decent, healthy bit of brood if you have good pollens and they have enough nectar coming in. If you're seeing a lot of issues, maybe discolored brood, maybe a really spotty pattern. I don't like taking resources from a great hive and putting it into a colony that's showing signs of issues. Now there are little colonies that really are getting up and going. I had one the other day, and it only had about two frames of bees in it. It was one of the mating nukes from last year that we put in our split colonies, our temporary double nucleus colonies, and the queen was laying a wonderful pattern on one of the frames. And the other side had a pretty decent bit. And on the outer edges, there were just a little bit of resource, and that was it. But you could just see them trying to get somewhere. In colonies like that, I am more than willing to pull from a colony that's needing to be pulled back from swarming this time of the year and give it resources. But if it's showing issues, European foul brood, viruses, which also, in my opinion, can give you the appearance of European foul brood or anything like that. I don't want to waste healthy brood on a wimpy colony. I would just soon save that later for making a split. All right, Dave. Asked about the Man Lake Deep Supers fitting any better than they did on the first three. And you know what? I haven't done anything since then. And I am totally going to do a review on that. It's an important question. Man Lake produces a lot of equipment around the country. And, if it works good, I'm going to totally tell you it works good. If it's bad, I'm going to tell you it's real bad, because we need to know these things. And I'm tired of not, for me personally, okay, I just purchased a Dadant fructose pump a while ago. And I'm still, because of this whole everyone stay indoors type stuff and whatnot, some of these companies are like, well, we don't have this going on. Maybe they don't. However, I'm got $1,600 wrapped up into a pump that doesn't work. I can't find anything about it online. The technical support at Dadant says, well, the instructions we gave you for the older model, we haven't updated the instructions. And I'm like, well, do you have any videos of it? Or do you know anybody personally who has used one? And they're like, well, I know someone who uses it with 1-to-1, but I didn't buy it for 1-to-1. I bought it for thick syrup. It says in the instructions it was supposed to work at 65 degrees Fahrenheit and pump a gallon around every 15 seconds. I can't get it with 100 degrees syrup to pump a gallon in a minute. So something's wrong with it. And this is where I feel like, hopefully my videos and other beekeepers who are going to get on YouTube and share their experiences, we're going to be able to waste less of our money and less of our time. But beekeeping isn't done. There's not enough reviews done on the products, and we need it. We desperately need it. Hey, Glenn, thanks for joining the group today, and thanks so much. And I just hope that you'll have a really good season down there. All right, we've got some dinner. Woo! All right. It's too hot? Oh, man. We'll wait for it. So lots of nectar. Let's see. Hey Don, so can you put swarm bees back into the hive that they came from? What I would do personally, if a swarm left one of my hives and went up into a tree, this is just what I found works very well for me, and I have multiple locations. Is I take it, I put it in a box with a screen, and I move it to a totally different area, 3 to 5 miles away. I don't have to worry about those bees already having an idea of there's a tree cavity or there's something over there. And so personally, I like to move them away. And then if I want to, I'll bring them back after the queen started laying again. And then you can reintroduce her back into the original colony. Um, I never tried actually just catching them in a tree and dumping them back in. And I don't think it would work. That's just me personally. My packages came 2.5 weeks early, and I don't have frame feeders yet. Boy, aren't you lucky? A lot of years, even like 2.5 weeks late. I'm using a spare deep with an entrance feeder until they arrive. How do you recommend to switch once they arrive? Just pull the thing out, put a frame feeder down in there, put in some floats, or put in. Some people will take like hardware cloth or chicken wire, and they'll make a little strip down there in their frame feeders if they don't have the fancy ones. If you have the ones like I do that are just completely open, that way the bees can walk up it. And I have found that bees, do much better with thinner syrups as far as um, falling in it and getting back out. Thick syrups, they have a really hard time getting out of. Kind of more like quicksand. What's that, the bottom one? Why do we have to wait until May for nukes? Flow should be starting soon. That's a great question. Well, the weather, um, if you're wanting locally raised queens, then we have to go by our season. And I don't raise queens in March very much. I start them a little bit towards the end of the March, and then it takes several days. So if we start grafting queens in the third week of March, which is typically what I shoot for, then by the time that they start laying good and we're making splits for them, which we are babying those splits right now, those queens have to lay. They have to be proven. They also have to grow. We're not just go into a hive and like, oh, here's 5 frames of bees, and oh, here's a queen, and then here's your bees. Um, we don't. That's not the way we do it. We usually take about 2 frames of bees, a good frame of brood, queen cell, and a frame of food, and then we throw it in a box with 3 foundations, and then we let them build up. And it takes a while for that queen to get going, and she has to have a good round of brood to come out to draw out those frames and get them going. And we get a lot of rain here, especially in March. We had a ton of rain. And so, the bees have to have good flying. The queens have to have good flying weather. They've got to be able to get out there and fly, can't get rained on, all that kind of stuff. So we really can't push the season much earlier than late March to raise queens. All right. Do you use the ladders inside of the frame feeders? I don't. I just have regular date frame feeders. There's nothing in them. And the only time I have drowning problems in my feeders is whenever I do something stupid or the bees are sickly. And what I mean by stupid is if you throw a frame feeder in there and you dump a package of bees in, they are not locked in. They don't act like a hive. They don't behave like a hive. And they are going to fall down into that thing because they're running all over the place and they're going to drown, hundreds of them. You wait 2 or 3 days, that queen starts laying and they start working on the frames like a good hive does. You stick a frame feeder down in there with 1 or 2 floats. You really don't even need the floats if they're healthy, and then they're fine. Can you start making splits when you see drone comb? Yes, it depends. Last year I made 5 splits actually on the first day of March, and it was almost freezing. I think it was about 8 degrees above freezing, maybe less. But we had mated queens. We can't raise queens that time of the year, and they were from Hawaii. And I went to some massive colonies, and I pulled a couple frames of brood, and I shook in extra frames of bees from other colonies to ensure that there was extra coverage to keep that brood warm. Made sure they had a honey frame next to them for food contact. All of those did very well, and I split those things in like 39, 40-degree weather, and then it got down really cold that night too. There's a lot of things that you can do outside of what is considered traditional, but the more outside of area that everyone, says, "Oh, this is where you gotta stay," the more risks there is and the more you gotta understand what you're doing. So James Burton, I have a question for you. In your video you posted earlier, you said when drawing out, you needed 10 foundation in your deeps. I was going to alternate between foundation frames and foundationless. Um, you totally could do that. As long as they start it right, just make sure as they're starting to draw that they're doing a good straight job. And you totally can do that. I was looking at the Apame hive that we did from that cutout, and they're drawing those Apame frames that had the little starter strips. They're drawing them very well, but the problem is on the last one that they've started drawing on, there is a ton of drone comb, and I don't want that. I know bees are going to have drone combs, but I would prefer there to not be that many drones, and especially on a colony this small. Why do they need to be devoting so much of their efforts right now on raising drones? So that's one of the issues that you're going to have with that is you're going to get a little bit more drones, but that's all right. I mean, you can definitely be fine with that, and just more mites get in there and that kind of stuff. That's my big problem with it. Hey, Cayman, I hope you and your family are doing well. I went into a hive this week and ended up catching 6 queens, had at least 5 queen cells left, made only 4 splits due to lack of boxes. Thoughts? Well, sounds like you need more boxes. Well, that happens to us a lot, and it's a good problem to have. It's frustrating from time to time. I was using some queens the other day, and queen cells, and we have too many sometimes, and we try to find the time, but we just have no time. I really don't have time for this chat. Not to say that I'm going to try to get off here early or anything, but it's just we are so busy. It's unbelievable, and sometimes you just can't take care of them. It happens, and that's just nature for you. It happens. So stick extra. I would just stick the extra cells in there with the other ones, and that gives you a better chance of in case you have a dud cell or something like that. But having too many queens is a good problem to have. What company would be the best to become a dealer with? Well, that is the question. At this point, I wouldn't recommend Dadent for a couple different reasons. I don't really like their woodenware. Um, they're always very slow with shipping in my 17-year experience buying stuff from them. They have some really cool products. I really like their smokers. Their extractors are pretty good. I was hoping their syrup pump lived up to that, but so far, not so good. Man Lake would probably be the better one to deal with if you're wanting to save yourself some money too, because you can get Ultra B and a lot of different things at a lower price. And there's not a lot of options out there. And Man Lake originally started out as a very small company, so that we need some people that are going to be innovative and give some healthy competition to these bee suppliers. Competition is very good for everybody. But yeah, probably Man Lake is at this point what I would do. Hey, Cayman, with our 2 new packages, can I put several over frames of honey? Can I put several left over frames of honey from last year to help start them, and where should I locate them? You can put some honey in your packages, for sure. Just make sure that you don't give them too much for what they can guard. If you're in small hive beetle country, bee bread and honey, you want them to be able to guard it well. You also want to make sure that they have plenty of laying space. But yeah, I've totally done that before, and giving them a little bit of honey it can be a very good and helpful thing. As far as sticking, where should you locate them? I prefer more sun than shade, but a little bit of shade is nice for me. Being here in Tennessee, I like to kind of time my inspections around when it's going to be a little shady on them. Some people don't like that because of small hive beetles, but I don't. I don't see significant difference between colonies that are in partial shade and full sun. Small hive beetles will get in there if they're going to get in there. Do you feel that a lot of beekeepers overmanage their bees? And I would say no, Frank. I say too many beekeepers these days undermanage their bees. Now, can you overmanage them? Absolutely. Especially as a new beekeeper, you usually have one of or two types, and you have the person that doesn't manage them enough, and you have the person that manages them too much. And it's really hard to find that healthy balance because you just don't know. I mean, goodness, this is 17 years for me, and there are a lot of things that I am still figuring out and fine tuning and tweaking. And from I look where I was this time last year, I'm just like, wow, we are definitely, you know, further along than we were this time last year, and just reacting to things before they happen. But as far as managing bees, bees are really not unlike a lot of livestock. I know a lot of people don't like to hear that, but they have their problems. They're just, and humans are the same thing. We get sick, we get diseases. I mean, we get all kinds of different things, and I really don't like medicine. I hate it actually. I don't even like taking ibuprofen. However, things happen, and I'm pretty young, so I don't have to worry about it that much. But bees need help sometimes, and as beekeepers, we are really, I think, supposed to help our bees out whenever we can. Now, once you get to that point where you can start raising your own queens, it really helps smooth things out, and you can take your bees, take your best bees, and get that throughout your bee yard, and that really helps after a lot. Really helps over a long period of time. Whew. Eat some dinner. How long after shaking a swarm should you expect brood? Okay, so that's a good question. And if you have a old mated queen, then I would expect brood within the week. However, you can have a virgin swarm, and that means she's got to go out and fly. It's going to take them a couple days to settle down. I mean, it could be 5 days after you've thrown them in before she even goes out on her mating flights. It could take 5 days before she gets over those mating flights. And a lot depends on the weather. If she gets some bad weather, then she's going to take a while to get mated. And then it can take a few days after that before she actually starts laying good. So a lot depends on that. Last year, I caught one swarm and shook it in, and it had a queen that started laying immediately, pretty much. And they superseded her. And that happens quite a bit. Sometimes the queen is just really old. Oh, Ian wants to know what the white. Ian's on here. I guess he's got nothing better to do. It's so snowy over there. Man, I just had to go there. I wish we had some snow. Not right now, but man, I wish we had snow in winter. So the whiteboard is to make me look more tan. That's what it is. Actually, we were going to write some stuff on here, and we ran out of time. We've gone through about 100 hives of bees today, and Laura was like, "We've got to get back to the house. We got a live chat tonight." And of course, I'm just like totally forgetful of those things. And if it had been left up to me, and we didn't have Laurel, I'd still be working bees right now, and you all be wondering what in the world happened. Minus 19. Now, is that Celsius or Fahrenheit? Or is it the same at that point? I can't remember.
Never the same.
It's the same at like one point, I thought. Anyways. What's the whiteboard? Yeah. Okay, that is whiteboard. So. A camouflage for me. Hey, man, take it easy. I'm starting to tan a little bit. The whiteboard makes you look taller. We got to make sure this whiteboard's behind me every time we do a live chat. No, I was going to write my P.O. box back here. It's 332 Gainsboro, Tennessee. Isn't it? Make it 332 Gainsboro, Tennessee, 38562. And you all can send me stuff like questions, and I can open them up and maybe read them on a live chat or something like that. Can you feed sugar syrup with a honey super on? You totally can do it. But if you're wanting to harvest honey from that super, it's a little ill advised. And especially if you're selling it. Now, if you're doing it for yourself, knock yourself out. Now, I am totally against people selling sugar syrup as honey. Totally. But some people act like it is just such a cardinal sin. And usually, I've literally heard people say this at bee clubs and they're sipping on a soda while they're doing it. And I'm like, you're already taking in high fructose corn syrup right now. So a little sugar syrup isn't going to hurt anybody, but especially if you're selling it for like some of the guys do around here for $30 a quart, it better be honey. Wow, that is stinking cold, Ian. You guys really need to get rid of that weather. We've been sweating here. My AC is out, and so we have like at nighttime been running the fans, opening the windows, and just dying. It's funny how everyone's got their different weather. Do you ship queens? And not right now, and I'm not even sure if I'm going to do that this summer. I'm really tempted to after we get the honey crop in, just to go back to work and downsize the operation just a little bit. We are working too hard right now, and it's just too much. So gonna try to find a healthier balance. So Ian, you were making all those pollen patties. Now we're of course we're past pollen patty feeding, but I've seen several people, and it might have been you, talking about feeding multiple types of pollens in order to encourage, diversity in their diet. And if you found that to be something that significantly helps you, or anything that the eye test has proven, hey, this seems to be giving me better brood. Just curious. Using resource frames in a swarm trap. I don't like the idea of putting bee bread or putting honey or any combs in a swarm trap that have resources. This is going to cause potential beetle problems and wax moth problems. Dry combs, old brood combs work very well. Your thoughts on the percentage of bees that leave with the old queen during a swarm? And I would say, and just from what I've witnessed and also some of the research that I've read, we're talking somewhere between 60 and 80% on a prime swarm, and probably more likely somewhere around 70 to 75%. I would say that would probably be pretty accurate. I had a colony last year and I was doing single brood management on it, and it made it all the way through the honey flow, and it swarmed out on me a little bit late, and it was like 5 deep boxes high. And when I got back to that thing, there was a deep box left. I mean, and I saw it. It was up in the trees. We couldn't get to it in time, and we were hoping to be able to get up to it and shake it, because I mean it was just the biggest thing I'd ever seen, and it broke the limb it was on, and then they took off flying, and there was no getting those bees. Somebody or some swarm tree is full of them now. The supplement is merely used to complement the natural pollen. One supplement to another, it's all basically the same jazz. Alrighty, well that answers that pollen question. You should read the letters like Johnny Carson used to do as Karnak the Magnificent. You could be Cayman the Magnificent. You would have to wear the turban though. YouTube probably shut me down. I get in trouble. How long do you leave a swarm in a bait box trap? Now, see, I use a deep box, at least one brood comb, and then the rest foundations or foundation or frames with a foundation strip. Now, this year, I think I have 3 swarm traps up right now. I'm not even sure I'm gonna have time to check them, but because they have all that space, it gives me some time to get to them. But it's pretty easy with mine to get them up and get them back down. So I prefer to not let them get packed, because last year I have a video on that in my playlist on swarm trap. We pulled off the stand, and when I was inspecting it in that same video, there were swarm cells all in, and I had to take some major preventative measurements on that swarm. Let's see. Should all queen cells be removed, smashed to prevent a swarm? Colony is healthy and large, just has a lot of queen cells. Well, so Tamara, there's different stages of swarming. And like right now, we've done a pretty good job so far keeping our bees in space and also pulling brood from those that are too far ahead of the game. And when we do that, it really retards them wanting to get into the swarming mode, giving them space and pulling brood from them. But right now, all we're seeing in them is just cups with a couple eggs. I have seen a couple with some larvae, but very little of that. Once they get to the capped stage, it is very hard to prevent the colonies from swarming. They really get in a move. You can split them really hard. I recommend finding the mated queen if she's still there and transferring her over to a different location. But the main thing is just preventing it. As long as the cups are not capped, you get all of them. That works, and you just got to keep at it because likely they're going to try to do it again and keep doing it again. I would prefer to split the colony and retard that as much as possible if they are swarming it very aggressively. Hey, Brian Reese, I'm telling you what. Where are you located, Brian? I think I've known at some point, but I can't remember. I hope your spring's going along really well. Larry Lee's bees. Cayman, is there a treatment for chronic bee paralysis virus? Not that I'm aware of. Does anybody know of anything that actually is proven to work on taking out viruses? And do you know of anything? I know there's several opinions out there, and the mushroom stuff is supposed to help. That's right, Brian, New Jersey. Y'all have a holly flow over there is what I've heard. I don't know if that's the case or not, but some like natural holly trees growing all over the woods. I don't know if you got it. But as far as the viruses go, I don't really know of anything that just eliminates them, and we really need something bad. We need something that actually works, and I don't think we've got anything. The problem with that I see, and Laurel, can you where is that book? There was a that book that had all the honeybee diseases and stuff in it. It should be over there somewhere. But a lot of people confuse European foul brood with virus problems. Let's see if I can find it in here. I think there's a picture in this book. Ooh, American foul brood. Ew, never had that before. I've never had any bad cases of chalk either. Chalk brood. Let's get to European foul brood. Okay. No, that's chalk brood still. Yeah. Okay, PMS, parasitic mite syndrome. Now, check this out right here. I don't know how well you can see this. But this is parasitic mite syndrome, and you see the cells look old. They kind of look greasy and nasty. There's mites on what's left of this larvae. You have a chewed out pupae up here, and you just have all kinds of bad looking brood and whatnot. Even if you eliminate the mites and get it down to ground zero, I still see that. That is not from, most of that is not from the mites themselves. It is from the viruses that they inject. And if the bees come down with that and they can't shake that out of their system, even if you eliminate all the mites, that is still a problem. And I don't know of any good way to eliminate it. And I think a lot of people confuse that with the European foul brood. I actually know a lot of people do. And I've got a couple colonies that have this right now. And I've never found a way to cure it. A lot of times those bees end up not doing anything. I'll drop some formic acid in there and the colony absconds, and I let the equipment air out for a few months, and then I use it again with no issues. But the chronic bee paralysis, it, like Hi-Fi says, isn't as bad. The deformed wing virus, sometimes you see deformed wing, but you can have deformed wing virus without seeing deformed wings. And there's several other viruses, and who knows, there might be some we don't even know about yet. Cayman, would you say in general, if a hive is going into swarm mode, that it is indicates it is okay to do walkaway splits in your area? If your bees are wanting to swarm, unless you've done something crazy, I would say that Yeah, probably it is a good time to do walk away splits. Now, I am really not a guru at all when it comes to walk away splits. I think I have done 5 in my life, and, I whenever I do mine, I take a frame of young stuff and shake a bunch of young bees in there, and I don't just pull boxes apart and stick them with on different areas and then walk away. I don't really like doing that. That's just me personally. I like thought out splits. But opinions are like noses. Jimmy, quit shining that flashlight in my face, please. All right. So someone's wanting to know what is the book. Now the book is pretty pricey, and it really doesn't have a ton of stuff in it. It has good pictures and descriptions on the diseases and pests that it covers. But this book is Diagnosis and Treatment of Common Honeybee Diseases by the Bee Informed Partnership and all that stuff, or something like that. Yeah, Bee Informed Partnership, and it is a really good book. It's laminated, so you can take it out in the field. Don't have to worry about it getting rained on, all that stuff. How often do you need to rebait your swarm boxes, and what do you use as bait? Lemongrass or Swarm Commander works very well. Definitely propolis, old brood combs if you have it. Those are the best things in my opinion. Lemongrass and Swarm Commander and anise and products like that will help a little bit. Don't use too much. Rebait every 2 to 3 weeks, but if I'm being honest, I usually bait them at the start of the season. If I'm lucky, I'll get back to them, and it has worked very well for me in the past. Any experiencing using requeening frames? Not really. I checked one of my hives today and I saw that I had laying workers. Any tips for fixing it? Sorry to hear that, Sherry. And that happens to us once or twice a year where we haven't gotten to a colony quick enough and they go into a laying worker mode. If there's not a lot of bees, honestly, I typically find that by the time you fix the colony, you should have just made a split anyways, because it's so much easier to make a split. And if you're taking resources and putting that into the laying worker hive, a lot of times what I do with my laying workers, as soon as I see it anymore, I shake the bees out in front of other good healthy colonies, and you don't have to worry about them going in there and killing the good healthy queens. Those bees aren't going to let that happen to their queen. But I just shake them out, and then I will use those resources. The last thing I want is those laying workers turning all my worker cells into drone cells because they're laying those infertile drone eggs, and then they're widening out those cells. But I have tried to fix those, and I have tried to fix those, and it's a very low percentage chance. And again, by the time you invest the time and the resources, if you'd have just made a split with that brood, you would have been better off typically, pretty much every time in my experience. Let's see. Today, I'm telling you, the bees were coming in heavy, and if you see the bees, if you pay attention, different times of the year when the nectar's really coming in some of our bee yards today, it's starting to come in with a decent bit because of the snow flowers, the wild mustard, and the autumn olive trees. Why do they call them autumn olive if they're blooming in the spring? I guess they have those olive things on them in autumn. Yeah, that's what it is. Okay, that makes sense now. But the bees are like coming in real slow, bringing in that nectar, and it is awesome. This is a great time of the year to be a beekeeper in Tennessee. Brandon, what advice would you give to a person that is trying to beekeep for the first time? One, don't listen to people on YouTube. um, be careful with YouTube, bee books, bee clubs. Keep an open mind, and also realize that there is nothing magical about any products out there, any method. Everything takes work in this life, and you usually get what you put into it. When I got into bees, I was told that they would take care of themselves and to let nature do its thing in every regard. Don't ever feed them, don't ever treat them, don't ever requeen them, don't ever do this, don't ever do that. And I have found the more I get away from that kind of stuff, the healthier my bees do. Healthy my bees are, and the better they do. You know, some people have said a local club and mentor, and that can work really well. Sometimes. I'm telling you, I know more stories about bad mentors and bee clubs than I know good ones. And that's not always the case. I know some good bee clubs. There's one down in Columbia, Tennessee. There's one up the Licking Rivers Beekeeping Association up in Kentucky has some really good guys. But I mean, if you don't know anything hardly, and you get these guys who are, 5 years in, 10 years in, shoot, I know 20-year beekeepers that aren't very good at keeping their bees alive. It doesn't matter. There are people who can teach you well, and there's people that can't. And Laurel, the first person that ever showed her how to install a package of bees, got her stung like 20 to 30 times installing a package. How do you do that? Very poor mentoring. Yeah, there's a lot of closed minded people in bee clubs, but they're everywhere. And I think that's one of the worst conditions that a man or a woman can have. It is very unattractive. There is so much to this world, so much about the human body, so much about bees. Anyone who is closed minded and arrogant really needs to wake up because we all have so much to learn and our lives are very short compared to all the information that is out there. It's exciting and it should be exciting every day. So Jordan's asking, are the Africanized bees where you live? Thank goodness they are not. Now we have purchased some bees from Texas before and brought up a little bit of that fun genetic, and we got rid of them. One of my friends down in Taft, Tennessee, purchased like 20 bee weavers, and oh man, he sent me some great pictures of his eyes and everything all swollen up. He got rid of those bee weaver queens, but no, we don't really have Africanized bees up here. They stay more down towards the far south, thankfully. Hey, Cayman, do you always use queen excluders, or do you ever see a need for a queen to lay in two boxes? Thanks for your videos, man. You rock. Oh, thanks. Um, there's a lot of times, and I'm Ian. I don't know if he's still on here, but Ian Stepler has a video series, channel, all that stuff, quite large one, and it's very good. I like a lot of it. And he has a video out there on what he does using single brood management. Before a time, he allows the bees to lay in two boxes. And I think that's really wise here as well. There are certain circumstances, but I used to never use excluders. You can totally beekeep without it, but you can totally use them. I have not found any drop in honey production whatsoever. I think they are a wonderful tool that helps you know where your queen's at, keeps your honey free of brood, and it can be used for a lot of different things. But like any tool, you can use it the right or wrong way. He has a video where he allows them to lay into the two deep boxes, then he reduces them back down at certain points. And I really recommend that. Right now, most of our colonies are double deeps or even triples, and we're fixing to do a very similar thing to what Ian does, is reduce them once the honey flow starts getting underway. We're going to reduce them down into singles. But on colonies that we're using just for making splits and nukes and queens, we don't necessarily use queen excluders for those colonies. So they're a tool, and you can hurt yourself and the bees with them as well if you use them incorrectly. I'm in a desert. How do I know when to feed sugar? So it is, here in Tennessee, we're very lush, but I'm telling you, between June and early August, we don't have hardly any nectar to speak of. Very, very little, especially if you have several colonies to a bee yard. And in the desert, yeah, you're definitely limited on forage at certain times. I never want to see a nice looking colony without at least three deep frames worth of honey or syrup in the hive. And feeding them a little bit along, even if it's just a tiny bit, really can help the colony. Some people say that sugar is bad for bees, but if there's one thing I've noticed over the years, is actually feeding a little bit actually helps them do better. They're healthier. Feeding the bees syrup can sometimes help clear up European foul brood and flush it out of their system. So Canadian's Beekeeper blog, yes, I agree. Give that queen space, then manage her space after the solstice to capitalize on the flow. And what Ian's referring to, the solstice really plays a big role in beekeeping. And I really find that, when I first got into beekeeping, some guys who knew more than I do were like, "Oh, the solstice," and I'm thinking, "The solstice, you know, what does that have to do with anything?" Well, it has to do with a lot. And once we get to the solstice in winter, well, what is that, December 21st or something like that? The bees really change their behavior and how they want to brood up. And I don't know everything there is to know about it, but I have found that managing my bees around the solstice has worked very well, and I'm trying to do better about that as well. All right. What is your opinion? Having purple martins close to the bee yard. I have about 50 purple martins in my colony that are about 100 yards from my bees. Laurel, do purple martins eat bees? They very well might. And the thing of it is, your purple martins probably love you. I don't know if they eat bees or not. I have to look that up. I don't know. I love purple martins though. And just think about that. You're giving them a nice crunchy exterior with a honey filled center. What a delicious treat. If you can get past the stinger, I'm sure they taste fine. Sorry, guys. I just had to eat something. What is the easiest way to make queens for a new beekeeper? Well, we have a video, and we're fixing to do another one, probably within a handful of days, on raising queens. But you can basically take the principle from raising the queens with a 5 frame nuke and just put a frame of eggs in there. Just have it completely queenless. Make sure that you don't crush them when you pull that frame out. Make sure you can get the other frames away from it, and just have a foundationless comb that they've drawn out to where it's easy to cut those cells out. And that's what beekeepers used to do, 100 odd years ago, and it still works today. It's a little bit more tedious than if you know how to graft, but it works very, very well. Martins may eat one or two of them, but the majority of bees they eat are the drones, simply because they are the only ones that fly that high looking for queens to breed. Normally, worker honeybees stay much closer to the ground and don't usually cross paths with martins. Hmm. Sounds like that was written by a non-beekeeper. Who knows? Uh, who knows? If you're raising queens, purple martins would probably be a really bad idea. Let's see. Do you like single brood management? Absolutely. Last year, I did it on all my production colonies, and it did very well. I didn't see any increase in swarming. Didn't see any loss in honey production. I just saw a lot of time savings in everything, as far as, oh, this is where the queen's at. If I need brood for a split, this is where the brood's at. If I need to do a treatment, the brood's concentrated in one area, where that's where the bulk majority of the mites are going to be, is in that brood area around all that larvae and stuff. What's for supper? Hey, this was made by my mama. Well, you cook for me too. I know you cook for me all the time. This is made by my mother, and it was very good. It's roast, it's potatoes, carrots, celery, and this poor cow. We raised it from a bottle calf, and I love raising kids on a farm. It's great. All of our kids. No one likes to see an animal die necessarily, but we raised that from a calf, and our kids understand that's just a natural order of things. And Kathleen was like, "Well, it's sad that she had to go, but I guess she's still with me because she'll be in my tummy helping me grow." And I was thinking, "Whew, that's a little morbid." But yeah, Ian, you know about raising cows and all that kind of stuff. But I'm telling you what, there is nothing like eating a homegrown chicken, homegrown honey, all that stuff. Laura, I'm bleeding somewhere. A mosquito got me. Man, I'm bleeding. I don't even know where from. Who knows? Yeah, but I'm telling you, this stew right here. See, I got allergies right now. It's just good and good for you. So ants are in the swarm traps. Are ants in a swarm trap a concern? It might be off-putting towards your bee, any swarms wanting to come in because of the smell of the ants occupying the space. Ants run off of pheromones as well, and there's a good chance that the smell of those ants are going to be off-putting to your bees. You might want to see if there's a way you can get rid of those things. You and Laurel are right. You need to take this act on the road. My daughter says she's eating Peppa the pig when she eats bacon. Well, uh, European bacon's probably pretty good. So what? They talk with a British accent, don't they? Yeah. All those British cooking shows and stuff like that make it sound more appetizing. It was terrible. No, it was not. Uh, how long after installing a package can I give it an oxalic acid treatment? How long do you need to wait? I would totally recommend 7 days. Wait till you start seeing that queen laying. And as long as they are laying and drawing out some of the foundation, make sure you're feeding while you're doing this too. And once they're locked in, oxalic acid is going to work great. You just want to make sure that you do it before they cap the brood. And then that oxalic acid vapor treatment is going to be very, very good. I know, Ian. Laurel did sound jealous when I was starting to admire my mother's cooking, and I don't hardly ever get anything from my mother. It was special. My mom loves me. What can I say? Laurel is an exceptional cook, but there's just some things that Mama, yeah, Mama makes monkey bread, and that is really good. For whatever reason, she's got a special way of making that stuff. How do you like your Appa May hive? I really have enjoyed it so far, and I haven't found anything negative about it at all. I mean, sure you pay a little bit more for it up front. I haven't had a chance to try the pollen traps out yet, but the bees are building up very nice in the equipment. Then again, they're building up very nice in my wooden boxes too. And this time of the year, it's very easy for bees to build up. I'm really anxious to see how it does through our winters, more importantly, and also our summers when we're just stinking hot. How many bees are bearding on the entrance? And it just makes me think we go through such a nutritional stress period in summer. If the bees aren't having to work as hard to cool the hive down, that's helping the bees conserve on their nutrition. They're not having to work so hard. It's not going to shorten their lifespan if they're not flying out as much. But to what extent? I don't know. But I am excited to try them. So far, so good. So many bee stings came and can't fill a mosquito bite. No kidding. I have been getting,
Until later. You
uh,
welt up.
yeah, until I welt up. That's the thing. I'd rather get a bee sting than a mosquito or a tick bite because the bee sting, it's going to hurt for a couple seconds and I'm done. I don't even so much as leave a red mark hardly for a second or two. And the mosquitoes that drive me nuts for a week. You are backpedaling. You need to buy Laurel some jewelry. Whose side are you on? I thought we were buddies. Oh, someone asking how long Laurel and I have been married. We've been married 9 years.
In a couple weeks.
Yeah.
3 years.
We're fixing to actually have our anniversary and then it's a 9-year anniversary. I just had to double check with Laurel to make sure I didn't mess it up, all that kind of stuff. If anything I've heard about Canadian and Alaskan mosquitoes, if half the stories are true, I want nothing to do with your mosquitoes up there. No. Ian says they have Manitoba mosquitoes, and they probably smack them and serve them up in the morning with the side of eggs. Heard they're big up there. Oh, J and B's Homestead said I marked a queen yesterday and got paint on her wings. That's not a big deal to me. I mean, I would prefer not to get paint on her wings, but I think where you run into issues is typically when you get it on her eyes or her antennae. Definitely the wings. It happens from time to time, but it'll probably be all right. The national bird of, of Canada is the mosquito. It's too cold up there for most birds until it thaws out. I'm surprised the mosquitoes can survive those winters up there. That's pretty amazing, really, when you think about it. Let's see. Purchased a nuke last year. It never took off. It overwintered with 3 frames coverage. How can I boost them? Is this a poor queen? So, Roy, when you're looking at the brood, what are you seeing? Are you seeing discolored larvae? Why are they not taking off? Either the queen's misfiring, they've got a virus in their system. And let me tell you, there were some nukes that I purchased about when we got married from a fella, and I was trying to grow, and a lot of them had a lot of mite related virus signs, and where they had taken big colonies that had a lot of mites problems already and then just split off of them because they didn't care. And if you get a colony that starts out with virus problems, I we just don't know a whole lot about that. But I'm telling you, whenever you have bad virus problems in your hives, Ian, have you ever? I'm not sure if there's a lot of differences up there with in Canada, but whenever you get a hive that comes showing virus symptoms kind of in the brood, are you able to fix that? I mean, it's we typically don't have very good luck of turning colonies with virus problems around. But I will tell you guys, and gals, that colony that had the high mite load is turning around a little bit. I mean, it's starting to actually do something. So whoop de doo, we put in a ton of work, and we're not going to get any honey off of them this year. We've got colonies that are like 20 times bigger and are going to do 20 times as much. But I mean, you try to save your bees when you can, but at a certain point, especially when you're running a lot of colonies, you have to cut your losses. So Ian is saying no on the viruses, and that's yeah. Once you see it, lights out. And I imagine up there in Canada with your harsh winters, that's just got to be just devastating. And I think Ian would probably agree that um, Varroa, just keeping them low, keeping the bees nutritionally sound, whether, hopefully nature can provide it, but if not, supplementing, keeping the nutrition high and the Varroa mite levels very low is some of the two most important things that you can do. Just never, viruses are just such a big problem and we don't understand enough about them. I really want to see some research done on that. Roy, I don't know if you responded back to that, but I've had a bunch of nukes in the past, and I have a couple colonies right now. I think I have 2 colonies right now that have virus signs where I let the mites get too high, and they just won't take off. I had colonies that were half the size that are bypassing them, and there's just nothing you can do about it, as far as I know. Yeah, absolutely. Low mites job number one, and a lot of people ask me, and people get tired of hearing this, but it is the truth. Maybe the most best piece of advice that I'm ever going to give any of you. And people ask, what's the number one thing I can do to keep my bees alive and healthy? And that is to make sure you know that you have kept those mite levels low. A lot, there's usually many people start out like I did, treatment free. And you're like, well, we can do this with genetics, we can do this. And then some people realize that this isn't working out. We're losing a lot of bees and they transition to treating. Well, then they get to the stage of, okay, we're treating, but we don't understand how it works. We don't understand the mite cycle very well. We don't understand our seasons and how many mites we reproduce. And we don't treat enough or we don't use the treatment effectively. And so we have mite problems. Make sure you are killing those suckers and pushing them to the point of oblivion as much as possible. I hate those things. If you can do that, keep those mite levels very low. 1% is plenty high enough. And take care of the feed. Make sure the bees have feed when they need it. You might have some queen issues from time to time. Those are the great queens, dead mites, good nutrition. It works. No magic. It's work. Does Ian have any more April Fool's jokes for us? I'd say after that snowdrop that he had, he's probably over the April Fools. I'm sure he'll figure out something next year, though. I didn't do one this year. I love April Fool's jokes. I mean, they're great. Kathleen got me too on April Fools. Cayman, how do you treat for mites? Oxalic, oh, in early spring. Actually, I don't really treat for mites this time of the year. We do a good job getting them in fall, and then we clean them up with oxalic acid in winter. And we don't usually do any mite treatments until we pull honey in June. And then that is our number one priority. Those honey supers come off and we drop them. Usually I find that we're in the 2%, 1, 2, at most 3%, but usually in the 1 to 2% area by June. And as long as we get on top of it, as soon as we pull the supers, we're fine. But the last thing we want is our bees going through the dearth period in summer when the nutrition's low. Bees live a shorter lifespan and having high mite loads. So, and here's one thing that I think, okay, let me get back to this question up here. Kind of went along with what I was fixing to say. Well, I've lost it. This dumb thing keeps jumping around on me. Anyways, it was in regards to brood breaks. A hi-fi, there it is. Cayman, do you use intentional brood breaks to fight varroa? We make splits that break up the brood cycle, and when we do that, we expose the mites in the parent colony and in the split. It is an extremely effective way of splitting your bees and killing the mites at the same time. This is one of the really underused tools that beekeepers have available to them. And a lot of people don't want to split to large numbers, and I understand that. But bees naturally want to reproduce. It's always good to have a couple insurance colonies. And whenever you break the brood cycle, you are exposing the mites. The mites have a short lifespan as well. I mean, they don't live indefinitely. So whenever you're creating a brood break, you're eliminating a certain percentage of mites and the potential they had to reproduce in the process. And then if you're combining that with an oxalic acid vapor or apivar or some product that is going to eliminate mites, you are going to achieve a nice insurance split, and you are also going to get good treatment. Now, if you don't want to split, you can create an intentional brood break, find that queen, and cage her. You can cage a queen for weeks. I've done it, and it does a very good job. Now, I still personally, excuse me, I would get that brood break going, hit them with oxalic acid vapor, and then I would hit them again. Oxalic acid vapor does not kill 90-something% of mites. Even when they're exposed, I usually find that it's, me personally, I find that it's more around the 80% mark when the bees are exposed. Mites are completely exposed. I would rather do 2 and just be sure. It's very cheap. Now, when you have hundreds of colonies, that it does kind of make it harder to do. But those of you who have fewer colonies, I think it would be well worth your time to get them twice. Do it a week apart, even if it's a brood break period. You know, oxalic acid's cheap. Some people will argue it's not healthy to use it in your hives. I totally disagree with that. I think it's very healthy. Not like don't think it should be considered a contaminant in the hive, especially if you don't have honey supers on. I have no problem using it. Yeah, Ian is fixing to use strips next week. And Apivar strips, that's a chemical treatment. Some people don't want to use it, and I totally understand that. And there are other methods, but I will say they still work. Some people say, oh, the amitrazine doesn't work anymore. The mites are developing resistance. I know too many people who say otherwise, and in my experience, I'd used a little bit of Apivar. I think I used 100 strips last year on splits, and they did a fantastic job dropping the mites. JB's Homestead. What about the honey super that you are not going to take and that's only for them? Treat oxalic acid in it. And then if you you pull the honey out, or the bees eat all the honey, and then you want to use it later, I would totally be fine with that. I don't know what the exact laws are in every state, so you'll have to watch out for that. But personally, I think oxalic acid they have the rules too strict on it. Now, I'm not saying that we should just all be able to just do whatever we want, but shoot, I know too many beekeepers right now who are doing things that are off label, and it's doing a pretty good job. And with oxalic acid, using the Randy Oliver stuff combined, I can't recommend anybody do that. I'm hoping Randy Oliver gets that approved pretty soon. So if you heard of Paul Stamets and finding his mushroom mycelium or whatever helping with viruses, I find his information interesting. I find it a little too hippy dippy for me as well, because some of the things that he has said comes from a guy who knows a lot about mushrooms and not a lot about bees. However, is there something promising there? I think it's totally worth looking into, but I'm tired of talk. I want to see some action. Where is the product? And if not, then let's move on to something else. We need products for viruses, maybe as much as anything. Mites and viruses, nutritional supplements for bees during poor years or bad years, whatever. But I definitely think that needs to be looked into. But Paul Stamets, I've just heard talk. I haven't seen any action as far as products or anything. Ian says amitraz combination with oxalic acid is the trick. And to me, those are two of some of the most gentle treatments. And the nice thing is you're getting two different mechanisms, killing your varroa mites, eliminating and discouraging any natural buildup or resistance to those products. So Randy Oliver is using oxalic acid in a glycerin matrix, basically, or whatever, and putting that into shop towels, and so that it's a slow release. Bees are crawling over it, getting oxalic acid onto them, and it's slowly killing a small percentage of mites over the course of multiple weeks to a month or so. And I don't know enough about it to see how effective it is. It's another, I think it's a chance for another toolbox. Some people say that it works very well. Um, I haven't done enough experiments to try it. A lot of people said that oxalic acid vapor was the best thing in the world too, and it is a great tool, but it's not near as effective as a lot of people say that it is. Some people are like, "Oh, I just do one treatment every month, and that's good." I have not found that to be even close to the case for me. But it's just different. All I can tell you is what I've experienced. That's it. Did I get stung? No, it's allergies. Have you ever used oxalic acid in a spray bottle on the frames? And hey, that'll totally work. If you do oxalic acid dribble and you missed it just a little bit, I mean, you don't want to put very much. A little bit goes a long way. Do some research on it first. I remember years ago, beekeepers in Germany, they were taking frames, picking them up, and just spritzing the bees just lightly with oxalic acid and sugar syrup. But you want to make sure that you're feeding your bees when you do this, so that they have some clean syrup to be able to eat, and so they're not it discourages them from wanting to actually eat the sugar syrup with the oxalic acid. Some people are using glycerin now to discourage this, because if the bees ingest that oxalic acid in the sugar syrup, that can help mess up their guts, which is not good at all. Come on, Laurel, get in here. I've got to eat, guys, or my blood sugar. Get in there and start talking, woman. And now, presenting the beautiful, the Beekeeper of 2020. Oh, come on. Everyone knows that they'd vote for you. I would. She said, "You're married to me, you better." I don't think Laurel's had to ban anybody else so far today, Lance. But I'm telling you, Lance, if you make too more any sly jokes, I'll ban you. Laurel totally keeps bees. Shoot, she was out there working bees with me up until we had to come and run do this. All that kind of stuff. Laurel 2020. Hey, I'm totally thinking that that needs to become a thing. Maybe we can push that through. Yeah, yeah, totally. Now get over here, Laurel. You're so shy. We've got her blushing already. All right. Hey, Buzz Beekeeper. I'm glad you're enjoying our live Beekeeper stream. Now, some folks have asked, do you add anything to your sugar syrup like pollen, honeybee healthy, or anything? I have totally found that additives have been unnecessary for me. As long as my bees have low mites and a good queen, I found nothing has worked better for me than sugar syrup or something like that. Um, there's all kinds of different supplements out there. So far, I haven't found anything that was worth the money myself, as far as like honeybee healthy or putting essential oils into my feed, or and some people put Fumidil B and different things in there. Me personally, I haven't found the need for any of those things. It's not. I do feed pollen patties. Now, some people are really getting into this kick about sugar bricks or um, sugar patties with a little bit of pollen and stuff in them. And I just like to keep things simple, and keeping them simple works fairly good for me. No whiteboard needed for Laurel. Hey, watch it. Uh, Jimmy, what are you doing in here? I'm telling you what, attention span of a goldfish. Now, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about Jimmy. Gets it honestly from his daddy. What was the most surprising thing that I saw last year? That is a pretty cool question. We saw some pretty crazy things last year. I went to Hawaii and visited my buddy over there, and that was pretty crazy. The nectar and pollen flows they have under there over there are totally not fair. Um, Also, this YouTube channel. I mean, this time last year we would be right now about 400 subscribers, and it's been through a lot of work that we've put into it, but primarily you guys hopping aboard and contributing and letting your bee buddies know about it, and we really appreciate that a lot. I think that would have to be the coolest thing that I've seen last year, is just getting to experience more about the beekeeping community. I feel like it's been more than a year that we've been really doing this, but we haven't. And I've learned so much from just collaborating with beekeepers online. I'm loving every second of it. Except those videos where we're like it's 1 o'clock in the morning and it's like on the 15th take, and I cannot get the video done. Yeah, for sure. But as far as seeing cool things with bees last year, I saw probably 10 hives with two queens in them last year, and that was awesome. I really like seeing that mother daughter queen laying system. I just think that's a desirable trait. I really love it. YouTube is like riding a wave. I've never ridden a wave before. Well, not on like a surfboard or anything. Let's see how. Oh, I guess that could be bad though, because if you're like in Hawaii, people get killed surfing there every year. So that's kind of scary. I don't think, Ian. Yeah, it was just 10,000 in December. So thanks everybody for all that kind of stuff. So I actually have had a couple people ask for my autograph, which is that's very nice of them, but it's totally unnecessary. I mean, I'm just a guy in Laurel. We just keep bees here in Tennessee. Small house. Would like to get rid of my truck driving job. Like to build something for our kids. Like to get out of debt. I'm working towards that. Like to be outdoors more. A lot of people like that and want that. Nothing crazy here. Yeah, so it is like riding a 30-foot wave. That's what you're saying, Ian. Uh, so, Beetle Buster bottom boards from Australia. My thoughts. So we're fixing to do some videos on that. I'm actually fixing to give away a Australian, the legit Beetle Buster board to somebody. That's going to be our next giveaway. So be watching out for that. They're some people are like, well, they're a little pricey, but they're made extremely well, and you're killing as long as the beetles are moving around, they are killing beetles. So that's something to consider. For some people, it's going to be too much money for them to spend, but some people are dropping $700 for a flow hive set. So personal preferences and all that. And I've got to say, so far, the beetle busters that we used since last year has probably killed just in that one hive. I would say somewhere between 150 to 180 beetles. And that's just using the board and diatomaceous earth, and the bees pushing them down, beetles dying. So they work. Now, I don't think it's going to eliminate 100% of the beetles from your hive, but it is going to eliminate a very high percentage, and that's all your bees need is to be able to, keep them under control. Now, I've never tried the Guardian Beetle Entrance Guard. I have a lot of there's a lot of things about it that make me feel a little skeptical. And the entrances on those things are so small. When I'm producing honey, I totally can't have one of those things on. The bees are going to be running into each other. So I think it can work in certain circumstances and maybe help a little bit. But me personally, the hive beetles aren't really that big of an issue. People keeping their bees healthy, that's the issue. If your bees are healthy, you can have 100 beetles in that hive. They'll be all right. You're gonna have to have a strong colony, though. Hey, Richard, I don't really keep a lot of pollen traps out. I haven't kept a lot of pollen traps in the past. This year, I'm gonna be doing more of it, and I'm planning on consuming some of it myself. One, because Laurel says that my biceps are getting a little bit too small. Okay, maybe not. Actually, this time of the year, because we don't have any of those fancy lifters like Ian does, my back is like totally sore right now, but my abs are starting to look really nice. And since I'm 31, I can survive. This is not sustainable for the long term though at all. But pollen is awesome. I think people should be collecting more of it and consuming it. Hey Cayman, are you a member of your state association? I'm wondering where this is going. Um, I kind of am. And if anyone's on this from our state of Tennessee, take this with a grain of salt. I've been here 17 years. I have found that our state association in several ways is a little bit underwhelming. And part of that might be due to funding. Part of that I think is due to leadership. I'm not very active in our local bee clubs and stuff like that. And there are some really cool ones here in Tennessee, but none of them are close to me that I found. And I don't care. I think we could do things a lot differently here. But no, I'm not. I kind of am, kind of not. I have paid for it once in a while. Hey, a small Canadian beekeeper. So, does that mean you have few hives, or does that mean you're like me and you're short? Not that you have to answer that question. Now, Ian, how tall are you? This has been debated by me and other beekeepers, and we need to know. I need to see if I'm right. That is true, Ian, but in what time? I just don't have the time to go out and do anything hardly, especially once my job starts back. But I think long term, I hope to, and I'm hoping this channel is helping a little bit. I really feel like people aren't talking about nutrition very much here, or varroa control good enough. Ian is 5'10", 6 foot even. Oh, okay, the other guy said 5'10", 6 foot even. I was I thought you were taller than that. Well, I lost. Thankfully, I didn't bet anything big on it. All right. You should come to our bee club in Fort Lauderdale. I would enjoy that. And I am going to be speaking at some places. I've got some folks that have invited me out to places across the country. Unfortunately, a lot of those meetings are outside of when I can actually speak, which pretty much is from September ish, kind of, to late February, maybe early March. I can squeak something in. Um, you know, but I love hanging around beekeepers and all that kind of stuff. When do you feed your bees pollen patties? I feed them typically through summer, start sometime in June, and feed them to early August, sometimes late into August, depending on the fall pollens. And then I'm going to start feeding pollen patties. This year I started in late January, mid January area, and fed them till about late February when the pollens became readily available here. Once the bees start bringing in a lot of pollen, and they'll ignore those patties unless the pollens are missing something. Once if they get complete um, everything they need to raise healthy brood from the pollens, they will just look at that patty and suck the syrup out of it, and that's about it. How much bigger do you have to get to quit your day job? Um, right now, I would say probably just about 100 hives, but finding the time and getting to make those splits, and also I'm trying not to rush things. If I play my cards right this year, I think I can have every bit of beekeeping debt eliminated, which is going to be really nice. And then, I'll just have, my house and a couple odds and ends. We drive older vehicles. I've got all those paid for. And, I've got kids to take care of, and I want to do this the right way. So I'm not pushing too terribly hard. I mean, I could totally get a loan and quit right now, but I don't really want to do that. So the YouTube channel is contributing quite a bit. I mean, not like it's like going to take over everything, but it is helping, and we're very thankful that people are enjoying watching our videos. And several people have done the Audible free trial, and as long as you cancel that, if you choose not to go further with the Audible, that really helps contribute to our channel as well. I'm going to leave that in the comments below, and we always have that in the description of our videos. You can get a free audiobook on beekeeping or all kinds of different stuff. And if you go through our link, it really helps our channel out. Stuff like that. And of course, people have sent donations and stuff here. Hey, Glenn, thanks for coming in tonight. And thanks for supporting our channel. I hope you have a really good bee year. We'll see you again later. So I'm going to wait till June, JB's homestead, to treat for mites. But hey, if I see a colony that has high mite loads, they're going to be taken out of the honey production side of beekeeping. We'll be treating them, and we'll be using them for queen rearing or something else because of the mites. We're not going to risk losing a colony over letting the mites get too large. Definitely always got to stay on top of those mites. But I haven't really seen any colonies so far, which should be the case, that have had any high mite loads, um, which is really good. So someone said, "Do what we sell bees," and we do. We have a bunch of nukes we're fixing to sell here at the beginning of May, and they are looking really good. This flow is really helping them build up and start drawing foundation very well. We are pretty much sold out, though. We've had a couple people back out, and so if we have some left over, we will be announcing that, and some people can jump on last minute. But right now, we're pretty sold out. This YouTube channel has really expedited a lot of things. Thanks for your help and sharing your experience. Best glue to use for assembling equipment. Now, this one's debated, and I have a lot of people disagree with me on this. Titebond 3 or Titebond 2. I am a Titebond 2 guy because it's cheaper. It has worked for me for years. Many people think that Titebond 3 is superior, and it could be the case, but I have never found any issues whatsoever using Titebond 2 wood glue. Yeah, but Titebond 3 is just the next generation. It's a little bit more, it's pretty much waterproof, as opposed to Titebond 2 being water resistant. Again, my hives aren't getting soaked, though. Shouldn't be getting soaked. So I find Titebond 2 to work extremely well. And thanks again, Carter T, for coming on. Hey, bees. Bees. Yeah, I would love to come out there to Virginia and meet you in person, and maybe speak at your club if we can figure out a time that works for both of us. And I'll try to PM you at some point, figure that out. Definitely in the wintertime. I love doing that kind of stuff. I learn a lot from it. Some people would think I wouldn't, but collaborating with a lot of other good beekeepers is always a good thing. How much could you make on that 100 hives per year? Oh, isn't that the question? So there's a lot of difference between 100 hives and 100 hives, you know? So I know that's profound, right? We have, oh, hey, Ian, thanks so much for coming on tonight and contributing and sharing with us some of your experiences. We appreciate your videos and keep them up. Just no more April Fool's jokes, okay? Thanks, man. All right, so back to oh, what was it? How much can we make on 100 hives? Well, a lot depends on the flow. A lot depends on the condition of the bees, and that's the number one factor. I even find in poor years that good, strong colonies still do very well. It's just all about having a strong colony. And we have hives right now that we're splitting from, and they're still going to produce a full honey crop because they're just so massive. And we have some that are right on schedule for honey. If we have a good, strong double deep right now, I'm going to be looking at a gross of probably about 400 plus dollars, you know, minimum. So it depends on how much you can sell your honey for. It depends on if you're raising queens off of it. Also, you got to think of the money that you're saving, because if we're raising our own queens, that saves us a lot. Plus, the queens are better. But there are a lot of colonies right now that we're pulling splits from to make bees to sell as nukes. And we can do that and still get a significant honey crop from those large colonies. So it really varies a lot. The main thing is having strong clusters coming out of winter. Yeah, that lizard is trying to eat that. Oh, it's on the outside of the glass?
Yeah.
Oh, that poor thing. We've got some anoles and the thing over here, and one of them's trying to so hard to get to a moth, but it's on the outside of the glass. How long after the queen emerges does it take for her to take her mating flight and then start laying? So that varies on a few things, but typically I find that she is going to emerge and then within about 3 days or so, start taking mating flights if the weather is good. It can if we get 3 or 4 days of rain like we're going to be having before too long, then that's going to slow that down, and then she's going to go on multiple mating flights. I usually account for 5 days on mating flights, give or take. So usually the way I look at it, when I put the cell in, it has 2 days. I give it to emerge, which is usually quicker than that. And then we're going to talk about 3 days, 5 days. I usually wait about 11 to 14 days. I usually wait 2 weeks, honestly, by the time I drop a cell to come back, because once you consider all the factors, even after she comes back from mating, it can take her 3 or 4 days just to start getting the laying figured out. Let's see. Someone was asking $400 per hive. And yeah, but that's only on the healthy, strong colonies. If you're selling a 5 frame nucleus colony off, then that's gross profits right there. There's a lot of jars and labels and jester nuke boxes and frames and foundation that go into that. There's feed that goes into that. There's treatment that goes into that. Yeah, but those are production colonies. That's not just some average ho hum colony. So you totally can make $400 per hive. And but last year we were having colonies that were putting 120 pounds of honey away for us to take off. All colonies over 100 out of our honey production colonies. You think about that: 100 pounds of honey, $5 a pound. That's $500 gross. And if you sell a 5 frame nuke off of that as well, that's a lot of money. And no, not all of them are producing $600 gross, but some of them are. We need to get consistency. And how that is going to happen is by making sure our nutrition is good, our queens are good, and unfortunately, more often than not, the mite levels are pounded into submission at low percentages. Laurel did not mentor me in beekeeping. She has mentored me in almost everything else, but not when it goes to beekeeping. I was beekeeping first. That's like my one thing, barely. Yeah, and then she started doing it, but she actually produced the most honey. She beat my record pretty early on and had a hive that produced like 120 pounds. Oh, the Tennessee Beekeepers Association might be watching. We love you guys. We really do, but I think that there needs to be a couple of changes. Everybody needs to be growing, and this is with bees. This is with beekeeping clubs. This is with our economy. This is with everything in life. You are either going forward or you're going backwards, and change happens. I love older things, but things need to be innovative. New pests, new viruses, new diseases. We've always got to be learning and getting smarter. And I don't care how old you are. This has always got to be being exercised. John Hatch, I'm going to try grafting for the first time this year. How hard is it to do? It's just like anything, like riding a bicycle. It's going to take you a couple times to get the hang of it. It's really not that hard, but it's going to take practice. And many people don't practice it very much. Get into some hives before you actually plan on raising queens. Graft some larvae. Yeah, you'll damage and lose some larvae, but it happens. And once you start raising your own queens, it's going to be a phenomenal event for you and it's going to change beekeeping for you. It's going to be an awesome experience and it's going to open up a lot of opportunities for you. It's going to save you money, better hives, all that stuff. Go out there and practice. Get out there and graft. You don't have to raise them into queens. Just stick that thing underneath those queens and get the feel of it. Anybody can do it. You might need a good set of glasses or something like that, but anybody can do it. John Clemens, how many supers is that and how many harvests per colony? I only take one harvest here. We put supers on, and typically on a good production colony, we're looking at 2.5 deep supers, which is going to, that is the max for us. Last year, we only had a few that actually produced that much. Typically, though, we're looking at 2 deep boxes of honey, maybe a little bit extra. Um, Last year on our production colonies, we were doing well over 100 pounds, but we had some that hit 140 pounds, and we took honey off of them, and we didn't even feed those colonies going into fall because we still left plenty on them. Last year was a good honey flow for us, but then again, those colonies were massive. We're talking five frames, 5 deep boxes worth of bee coverage from top to bottom. When you start making queens, when do you start making queens when drones are in the purple eye stage and they're mature? Um, Yeah, you usually wait till the drones, you have a good bit of drones. And keep in mind, um, if you're just raising a handful of queens, 6, 10, something like that, 15, uh, it doesn't take that many drones. But you do want to make sure that there are drones out there. You don't really necessarily have to be setting out a bunch of drone yards if you're just raising some queens for your own hobby bee yards. It is nice to have some, but definitely not necessary. Especially during prime time in spring, there's plenty of drones out there. Let's see. How do you market your bee products? So YouTube has really been marketing our nukes for us, but when we've sold out of those really quick. And as far as honey goes, we just call people up, farmers markets folks, Nashville, Cookville, um, farmers co-ops, antique stores, whatever. We get people to buy it by the case from these stores. We give them a lower price. They mark it up. They make money. We don't have to fool with individual customers. I love people. I love talking to people. I love promoting our honey. I don't have time for that. Why don't you say that to everybody? Come on. She said that I like talking too much sometimes. Um, Let's see though. But primarily we want other people to sell our honey. They love promoting it because they make money off of it. They pick it up. Our time is too valuable at this point to be going to individual locations and selling every week. I don't have that kind of time. And I can make more money staying home working bees than saving a couple bucks by getting the full value going places. That's just where I'm at personally. Not everybody fits into that. Ian's selling his in drums at commercial prices. So we all got to figure out what our markets are. And some people are selling it for $30 a quart. Goodness, I don't, that's a lot. But some people are doing it and they're making good money at it. And that's fine. If you can do that, knock yourself out, make that money. So Mitchell was asking, why aren't my bees taking Justin Mitchell? Why aren't my bees taking in Pro Sweet? And I have no idea. I was feeding Pro Sweet to our splits this last week, and they were chugging it down. try watering it down a little bit and see if they will take it better. But maybe something's up with that colony, or I don't understand why they wouldn't be taking it. All right. And some people are, let's see. How did you determine your label? I went to Man Lake. I found a label that looked halfway decent. It is cheap. It is. Hey, Laurel, hand me those labels up there, will you? There's nothing fancy about it. Honey sells pretty easy. We really need to market our honey better. We need to do like this Hawaiian guy for Good Job Bees in Hawaii. This Kiave honey is absolutely crazy delicious, by the way. And you can go to, I don't get paid to do this, but his honey's really, if you want exotic honey, it's crystallized, delicious stuff. It's at goodjobbees.com. And it is absolutely delicious. Anyways, you can figure it out. So we need to market our honey more like this. He's got cool tops and bottoms and different color lids, and he gets a premium for it. This is what I do. Generic. It works. Nutrition labels on the back. The honey flies off the shelf. Word of mouth, though, works really good. So I have no idea why the bees aren't taking ProSweet. The only reason I see that bees don't take syrup is either one, if it's out from the colony, like kind of out of their reach, not in the hive, and they're getting nectar coming in, and sometimes they'll ignore it when it's like that, or the bees are having some health issues. But healthy bees eat, unless like say if I put out right now, because there's the flow coming in from the snowflowers and the mustard and all that other stuff. I'm leaving out honey frames like while I'm inspecting. I'm just like, oh, there's a honey frame. There's a honey frame. I'll leave it out. No robbing at all. It's awesome. Why can't it be like this year round? So I don't know. Keep me up to date on that colony though, and why it's not taking ProSweet, because I've been feeding hundreds and hundreds of pounds in the last week, and they've been chugging it. J&B's Homestead, ask your wife if she has an anvil that she would want to get rid of. I remember you said she is a blacksmith, and she's not getting rid of any anvils. For sure. We don't have any extras and that kind of stuff. I don't think we don't really. Laurel says she wants another one. So if you have one, we'll buy it from you. Now, come on, Don, don't be like that. Laurel is a lot of the reason people want to watch these live sessions, but you know that you like listening to me talk and talk and talk. Come on, come on. I wish Laurel would speak up. Laurel, how about you take this? I'm gonna go. She's got her fingernails like dug into my ribs as I was pulling away. Do you sell any comb honey? I wonder how much of a market there is for it. My buddy in Memphis, Gus, sells a good bit of comb honey and does great with it. But you have to kind of develop the market if it's not kind of already there. Unfortunately, and some people like, well, it's the culture has changed. It has changed, but beekeepers haven't done as good of job at marketing and making honey. I mean, if you compare the beekeepers of today compared to the beekeepers probably of my grandpa's generation, we're not near as good. And part of that is because there was a big gap in people getting outside and education. Also, we have a whole lot more pests and diseases, and it makes beekeeping much harder. And many people don't ever get past that point of keeping their bees healthy from those things, and they don't produce as much honey. And because of that, many of us don't get to the stage of producing the cooler products like comb honey and beeswax candles. And I'm not even doing those kind of things, partially because it takes too much extra work, and a lot of people got away from it for that reason. We need beekeepers to do that, but he makes a good bit of money off of his comb honey, let me tell you. Cayman, if you made a video where you were the videographer and Laurel ran the video, it would probably have more views than any video in your library. No offense. Hey, it's good marketing, man. How many of us would like to see some short dude or see some hot chick. I mean, just rate. You don't want to be called a hot chick? What do you want me to call you? Oh. Ah. Yeah, teamwork, all that kind of stuff. But let's see, yeah, comb honey I think is awesome, and crystallized honey we need to push that more. It's a great product. I've been eating more crystallized honey lately. Honey is awesome. Yeah, Todd's like no context, contest. Yeah, I mean, if Laurel would just not be so shy, and you would just, why can't you just talk like this? Just start talking to these people. They love you. I forgot you could look at it on your phone too. uh, where can we buy your honey? So there's places in Cookeville, farmers markets, Lane's Feed and Tire. There's going to be Paradise Produce in the Nashville, Jolton area selling our honey. Um, we're actually going to be up there at some point. I'll be announcing. By the way, if you guys don't know about it, I know a lot of people don't do Facebook, but if you do it, you can follow me on there whenever we're doing any events or anything. We're going to be at places. It's going to be posted on there. We do um, post some stuff on YouTube, but some things you just can't do on YouTube, and so we have Facebook for that reason. Um, yeah, creamed honey is delicious. A little bit of natural vanilla bean mixed in with it, and oh my goodness. We actually have shipped honey before, and it's just shipping's very expensive, and honey weighs almost 12 pounds to the gallon. So, how many new beekeepers do you mentor each year, not including video support, but physical mentorship? And the answer is zero. We don't have time. I don't. As soon as I get off of this thing, we are going to be bottling honey. I need to be outside right now, moving 300 deep boxes into the shed. I need to be getting some sleep. That would probably be good too. And we just don't have time. And a lot of people say, well, we'd like to help you out. Most of the time they won't. They always slow me down, and that's just all there is to it. And it's natural. There's nothing wrong with that. New beekeepers just don't know. I just don't have time, and I don't want people showing up to my house. I've had a few people do that. It drives me nuts. I love people, love talking about bees. Everyone knows that. Nobody better show up to my house without asking. That's all there is to it. Even if it's someone in my family, I don't like people showing up. This is my place. I like my personal privacy. And Laurel, she's mean and she can shoot good too.
Mm,
What?
Not mean.
You're not mean, vicious, dangerous,
Mm.
maybe a little dangerous. All women are dangerous. Yeah. But I've thought about doing the whole, mentorship, but if I did that, I would charge money. And some people get ticked off. Yeah, you charging $100 for something like that. But at the same time,
We'll do some classes.
I'm going to try to do some classes, but $100, would probably be what I'd have to charge because some people are like, well, that's a ton of money. I can raise a lot of queens in a couple hours and a lot of nukes. I can make some splits. And so, and I'm having a hard time finding time for the kids. So I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just saying that's the reality of it. We're having a hard time finding time for the videos that we feel like you guys deserve. And it's very frustrating to me that I'm having a hard time finding the time for those good videos. Um, but we're really trying to figure things out right now. We're working too many hours right now. Between Laurel and I, we are easily working 150 hours right now. Laurel, the people are wanting you to speak up. About what? Talk about the bees. Talk about your first hive. Talk about that crazy mentor that got you stung like a pincushion.
Well, he had me home and clean. That's what happened.
Anyways. So doing a test for swarms, 10 frame deep versus 5 frame medium nuke, same tree, which one will catch? Yeah, that's a hard decision. I personally would think the 10 frame deep would, and Thomas Seeley has done a lot of research on swarm trapping, probably, if not the most educated. He might be the most educated on swarms in the world, but he's definitely up there with some of the gurus around the world. He has found that cavity sizes that are a little bit bigger than a deep are actually more attractive to bees. And on those prime swarms, they need that space. You know, that swarm that I caught in that video was covering 8 or 9 frames. A 5 frame nuke isn't going to hold them very long, and it's not going to be near as appealing to them. That was a double deep box they moved into. I've caught some swarms that needed 2 deeps right away, and because they were like 12 to 14 frames. And so it really just depends. But again, you got to do with work with what you have to work with. I've seen bees move into some super small cavities. I was looking at a swarm a couple years ago. It moved into a cottonwood tree, and I kid you not, the thickest part must have been, that big around it. They looked like they were doing pretty good, but the problem is they're going to have a low chance of survival because they get in there. They don't have a lot of room for brood. They don't have a lot of room for food. And then they're likely, because the space is so tight, they are going to swarm again too quickly. And then that is going to cause them to divide and probably die. Dawn, Laurel has more than the knowledge to answer questions, and she could tell you about wiring your house and all kinds of different things, but she just has no desire to talk on here. I don't know why. Hey, David Edwards, thanks so much for coming onto our live chat, and thanks so much for contributing to our channel. We appreciate you very much. Yeah, Rodney, I've thought about doing 1 to 2 videos a week and putting them out on a given day, and then doing fewer videos like that and focusing on a couple quality videos. The problem with that is there's so much that I miss. Um, I'm too ambitious for my own good, and I want to be able to do a lot. I also want this channel to grow, because right now this channel is, it is helping us financially to a degree, but it is taking a ton of our time at the same time. So we're trying to make it pay kind of worth the time that we're putting into it. And it takes work to get to that point, just like anything else. This is turned into a business, and it's you have to be careful, everybody. YouTubing, beekeeping, whenever you start taking it into to a business level, it takes a lot of the fun out of it, and it does. I love One of the things I love most about this YouTube channel is because of it. It has allowed me to be able to try a few things like the Apame hive and a few other things, and kind of have a little bit more fun. But definitely, whenever you turn anything to a business, you take some of the fun out of it for sure. When would be the best time to cage the queen for a brood break? And that really depends on your season, Paula. Here, as soon as I pulled supers in June, it would be a great time. We're going to pull that honey, make sure we leave enough for the bees. I'm going to make a split if the colony is very large. When I mean by large, we're talking 3 deeps or bigger, 3 to 5 deeps of bees. I'm going to be taking all of the capped brood to the new split, leaving the queen and all the larvae behind. I'm going to split them even, and then you can cage that queen in there if you would like. But keep in mind, you really don't need to in the original colony now, because if you've taken all that capped brood, you've completely and there's only larvae in the original colony. You don't have to cage that queen, because all the mites are completely exposed now in that colony. Hit them with oxalic acid vapor once, come back a week later and hit them again. Let that queen keep laying. But if you want to, you can cage it and not do a split. But I think doing that split is wise. You break it, you get more bees. Insurance colony, buy a queen if you have to. And then the other colony that has the capped brood, there you can just wait a little bit, put that new queen in there. You can keep that queen in a cage for a week or two, let all that brood hatch out, expose all the mites and kill them that way. Brood breaks are a great technique on mite elimination. It's very natural as well. Combinations are the best way to deal with anything pretty much in beekeeping. Combinations of treatments, combinations of biological controls, drone comb removal with oxalic acid vapor, brood breaks with oxalic acid vapor, maybe drone comb removal, all that stuff. Hey, bees. Thanks so much, buddy, for coming on. I hope your bee season in Virginia is going to be really great this year, and that end up with more bees than what you need. And your wife, well, I don't know what she thinks of all this, but she's like, "What are we going to do with all this honey?" I hope it goes well for you. I don't know what I'm saying. Laurel's going to come over here and smack me in a second. Is it better to add a honey frame to a split or feed sugar syrup? Ooh, good question. And I'm going to give you an interesting answer. I don't know. Um, I think the sugar syrup might be better than giving a honey frame. The honey frames are good, but the feeding sugar syrup has advantages. If you're feeding a thin syrup, it's going to stimulate the bees. It's going to stimulate comb drawing. Putting a frame of honey in there just as it is thick is not going to do that. One of the things that I have been finding out recently is that honey or nectar, actually, as it's being ripened, creates hydrogen peroxide, which I kind of already knew that, but I've got to thinking about it more. And that can cause a natural cleansing of the hive effect. Some people think that sugar syrup can actually create that hydrogen peroxide as well. I don't know. But I have found that bees that are usually fed some sugar syrup perform better than those that just have capped honey in there. There's a balance there. I'm not saying pull all your honey and start feeding your bees, but thin syrups and thin nectar instead of honey has advantages over thick feed. Bees prefer nectar. They prefer fresh nectar over honey. Honey is just a long-term way for them to store that energy source that they need. What do you do with the mean hive? Around here, we find her, we take the hive tool to her, and then we put a new one in. I don't like mean bees. We're trying to breed a gentle bee. I've got kids running around in my yard. I don't want bees coming after me or my kids. I would recommend if you can wait a little while, I would requeen till after the your honey flow because bees naturally want to requeen after the flow ends anyways. It's has to do a lot of times with the incoming resources, the population, as there's a transition there. A lot of requeening goes on right after the honey flow ends. And so I have literally seen new queens that I've put in early and then them get requeened again during that period. So I typically wait till after my honey flow to requeen. That's just something I've observed. Hey, George, I'm Granberg. Thanks for coming on and for the compliment. Thank you, man. Yeah, Cabin Creek honeybees, they make a lot more comb with sugar syrup, in my opinion, and they do. Nectar and sugar syrup is going to do it. There is something to it, and I really think hydrogen peroxide might be one of the benefits of feeding bees and getting nectar. And I don't know that. There is a fella, if y'all don't know, his name is Bob Benny. He has a YouTube channel. He doesn't have a ton of subscribers, and he really deserves more. I don't recommend people lightly. I think all of his information is very fundamental. You can learn from him. He has a video on the hydrogen peroxide side of things, and I think it would be worth everyone to watch one of his videos on feeding bees. It'll make you think this world is complicated and we need to understand more about it for our bees. Ooh, ice cream. Let's see. Hey, backyard bees. Thanks for coming on and being part of our channel and contributing in other ways. Um, you'll have to show me how you've at some point how you got that intro with the banjo on the opening of your videos on your channel because I need to get something like that. Probably not the banjo though. My banjo playing brother would get onto me. How long have your personal queens been lasting, Todd R? Any of that? There's some variables there, and I usually can get 2 seasons with mine, no problem. But some of them will requeen a little earlier, and some of them will last longer than that. Keep in mind that this year, because we were so mild this winter, I had queens that laid literally almost 12 months out of the year to some degree. That is a lot of laying, and if you start doing the math, 2 years of laying is like 4 years in Canadian beekeeper lane. And so my queens are going to expire faster. Um, and if you take them down to Texas where they, go even longer, I mean, goodness, there's a lot of variables with that as well. But me personally, if I can get 2 good years out of a queen, I think that's phenomenal. And that is my goal, is 2 good years. And also we're raising queens from those that have proven to be good at requeening themselves when they have an issues. I think there's bees that aren't very good at requeening themselves, and it's poor genetics. So we try to raise queens that are good at requeening. Yeah, Bob Benny seems to be just a really nice guy. You never can tell about these crazy YouTubers, but he really seems to be down to earth. You can tell he has a lot of experience, and there's no shenanigans with his channel. I really appreciate that. He's just someone showing you what he's doing, the good and the bad, and he doesn't act like he knows everything, which is a great quality in anybody. So someone asked me about the right cell frames versus the Acorn foundation, which is a question I have thought about as well. So I was able to get those frames in bulk, and that's one thing that it's really unfortunate when you're not able to buy in bulk. I was there for many years, and I've gotten away from building my own equipment because now I can get things a lot cheaper. But as far as the right cell and the Acorn, I think the Acorn is the best foundation on the market, and I don't get paid to say that. I'm just trying to help you guys out. If you have the choice for the same price point, go Acorn. But again, I've just got 3,000 right cell because I can get the frames assembled, pick them up, and the foundation inserted. Man Lake slash Kelly's does an exceptional job on their frames. I love the Ponderosa Pine. I love the way that they're assembling them. The most important component to plastic foundation is number one, bees that want to draw and that are ready to draw, and a good wax coat. Acorn Foundation, I think, is exceptional. Texas is so large. We have 13 months. You guys in Texas, I'm telling you, you guys are special. Every country needs a Texas, if nothing else, just to make fun of. But the Acorn Foundation, I think, is better because I'll try to show this at some point. But the right cell foundation, you have the hexagon, and then it's flat underneath. The Acorn, if you look at natural combs, it's not a hexagon and flat. It is. It goes down to a point into the next side, and they build off of that. And the Acorn has that kind of a natural looking indention. Also, I think that they're built just a little bit stronger, and they put more wax on their foundation. If you get a single coat on one or the other, the Acorn is going to have more wax on it. Let's see. Obnoxious but awesome. Wouldn't it be a text scientist? Okay, so as far as the boxes, someone asked about the joints earlier and all that kind of stuff. As far as the joints go, I haven't again had a chance to check them out. I like building my own equipment. I just have no time to do so. And at this point, because I can buy in bulk, it's so competitive. I really can't make save any money hardly building my own equipment at the type amount that I need and everything like that. The boxes seem like they're built well, except I'm concerned about that top joint. We will see how that goes. I'm dipping them. And I really feel like that's the most important component with your boxes is if they're sealed very well. If they're sealed well, they're going to do much better. I would prefer a poplar box if I had my personal choice, or a cedar one that was painted really good or wax tipped. But these boxes from Man Lake seem to be pretty good. This is my first year using them though, so we'll see. The other ones, the that I wax dipped I used last year were from the Amish guys. And for those of you who don't know, maybe it's close enough for you to drive. There are Amish who make bee equipment. The price is very good typically. compared to ordering something. There's one down in Lawrenceburg, Tennessee, and there's one in Franklin, Kentucky. And I think the deep boxes are around $12.50, $13 a box, and they're cypress. Sometimes they have poplar too. So you can get your equipment cheaper there. There are ways to do it. Beekeepers need to come together and buy in bulk more often, I think. Good night, Terry. Thanks for coming on. So Villainous SSBs, how's the beetle buster doing? We're fixing to give it away not too long from now, and it has been doing very well. Yeah, we're a new one. You know, we're going to be giving away a brand new beetle buster coming up soon. So keep an eye out for that. They are built like a Sherman tank, and they kill beetles year. As long as your beetles are active, they're killing beetles. In wintertime, we don't get a whole lot of beetle killage. Is killage a word?
I don't think so.
It is now. And yes, I have a shirt that says beetle killage on it now. So wax dipping, yeah, I like that much more than painting because it can just go into every single pore and just soak into it and seal it up. But I think honestly, I'm thinking honestly about painting over the dipping as well, and I think that would be even cooler. Eat your ice cream before it melts. Exactly. Did Jimmy get a hold of this? This is like half gone.
You ate it the other night.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah. Hey, Brian Reese. Thanks for coming on. And thanks so much for helping our channel. If you have any questions, let me know, man. And Maria, thanks so much for coming onto our live chat and being a part of our B group. It's, we don't do anything. Well, we do crazy things around here, but we're just all figuring beekeeping out in some form or fashion. Well, I know Villainous. It looks really good with the raw dipped wood, but the problem is it darkens over time. It gets pretty dark over multiple years. And I'm just thinking long term, the UV protection. I don't know. I know some commercial beekeepers who have dipped and painted with paint and let that soak in with it when it's hot. And some of them are saying they can get 20 years out of a box that way. And that sounds really attractive to me. Hey Kevin, congratulations on getting your packages, man. It's awesome getting bees. Just keep learning all that kind of stuff. By the way, I had someone ask me a second ago on a good beekeeping book, Walter T. Kelly's How to Keep Bees and Sell Honey. It's a pretty inexpensive book, and it's older, but it's very fundamental, nuts and bolts. I still like to open that book every now and then. It's older, but it's great. The only thing I would change about that book is more information about the varroa mite and small hive beetles. But other than that, I love that book. And I think it's only like $7-8 at Kelly's. Great book. Hey, RO, it's 3 a.m. your time. Thanks so much for coming on and putting up with those late hours for some bee stuff. You're a trooper. Cayman, do you think you'll have any queens available this season? And I don't know. It really depends on what I do summer, if I'm going to be working a few days a week at that job or not. I very well may, but then again, if I do, I like it later. I'm going to sell them in batches of 50 or larger. It's just a lot easier for me time-wise and monetarily. The time that it's going to take to, okay, I'm selling 1 queen here and 2 queens here, and I can just contact somebody who wants a lot of queens and just 1 shipment, 1 order, and almost make the same amount of money. Hey, Rodney, thanks so much for coming on tonight. And, the main reason that we started this channel, I didn't think it was going to take off. Laurel was right again, as usual. Yeah, I see that smirk over there. But the main reason that we put this channel together was to help people learn what took us over, a decade or more and learn it in a couple of years. And you're still going to have to get some experience under your belt. This information is going to help. Some of the good beekeeping books are going to help. But ultimately, you got to get some hands-on experience, and there's no replacement for that. But if you study, and hopefully with our channel, you're going to be where we're at if you desire, in a fraction of the time. And we got a hold of some very poor information when we got started, and it cost us so much money and so many hives because we just were so ignorant to some things that now we just look at and we're like, how could we have been so ignorant of the situation? But we as humans, we can be pretty dumb sometimes. I'm not dumb very often, man, my Laurel. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. By the way, we're having homemade spiced rum sauce on our ice cream. Man, hitting some hard ice cream. I guess that's what you call it.
It's pretty cooked and you just have
I guess so. That's cold. It's not all natural ice cream. It's not like it's creamy. It's still pretty good. Let's see. Let's see. Maysville, Kentucky here. Yeah, they have a good beekeeping association up there in that area. And I really enjoyed the seminar and being able to speak up there with everybody. There's some good speakers. It was fast paced and there were several speakers, but everyone seemed to be selected on fundamental beekeeping, and that's very rare. Typically, you go to these things and you get some really off the wall stuff, and everyone should be able to express their opinion. I understand that. But the problem is when you are new and you have somebody telling you about this magical sauce that you throw into the hive and it's going to help with this, and it doesn't, and it costs you money. And I really have a hard time with that. I don't like being fooled. I don't like wasting money. I don't like losing my bees. And there's a lot of gimmicky stuff out there because you can make a lot of money off of people that don't know better. And it's been going on since the beginning of the time. I think there's a lot of gimmicky products in beekeeping. So in Tennessee, Lawrenceburg, Kentucky, it is south of Columbia, Tennessee. There's a Amish supply down there. There's also some people that resell it, but if you get it straight from Albert Zook, the only way to get, is go there at the store or mail him. I don't have his address on me currently, but you can save a lot of money and the equipment is very good. Cayman, what would you say is the minimum number of sustaining hives need to be successful commercially? Can live on the bee business profits alone? Man, travel bug, that is really hard, and it really depends on your business model and where you live. Because if you have access to, I know beekeepers who sell honey in Chicago, and they're in that area, big markets with a lot of city folks who have money or are just willing to give it away. And if you're in the middle of Montana or somewhere like that, then your opportunities are going to be severely limited in some regards. But we've got to look to online stuff these days. I'm not a tech person. This YouTube thing has really opened my eyes to marketing. It is so crucial. I mean, getting to talk to you all is just, is blown my mind on, the reach that I have now. I can say, hey guys, we got nukes or we have queens, and you know what? I want to move them. It's crazy. So a lot of it depends on your location. But as far as what I would say for my area, to not have to worry about living from paycheck to paycheck, I would say 300 hives. But there are people who could do it on 200 hives. And we're talking production colonies. 300 hives minimum. 400 would be preferred. And I'm thinking you could do it with 200 if you were selling your honey for very high amounts. And some people market their queens for 40 bucks a piece. I just don't know. I'm not a very good marketer, to be honest. And I have a lot of people accuse me around here for selling my honey too cheap, but I also don't have the time to sell it. So there's a lot of variables there. We have right now, oh goodness, if you count all the splits, pushing 500, 500 colonies. So, and that doesn't include little queen rearing colonies and stuff like that. So, but we're going to sell a bunch of those off, and right now, I want to have at least 200 production colonies next year, and I could have more than that, but we're trying to gear back down a little bit because we're working too hard and trying to reevaluate some things. I'll just leave that one alone. Let's see. Thoughts on flow hives for hobbyists? Okay, so the flow hive is a highly debated topic, and I think it's a really neat thing. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it necessarily. I think the mindset that goes along with it is the danger. The fact that a lot of people think that you can just throw it on and you get honey. I know you're not thinking that, Stan, but I think when Flow Hive came out and so many people that never kept bees were like, "Oh, Flow Hive, I'm gonna get into bees and all that stuff." And if you can produce honey in a Flow Hive, you can produce a lot of honey without one. And they're if you're thinking about monetary wise, money, it's not at all cost effective, but they work. And I know people who have used them. I've got one. I just haven't taken the time to use it. I'm gonna really try to this year. But I know some friends who have them and they work very well. But in some areas they work better than others. We have a strong flow and it's short. And then they propolize things up. Definitely don't leave it on after the honey flow or put it on too early. The bees will propolize the gaps in between the cells. So I mean, there's pros and cons. The biggest con is, man, it's expensive, but they work. And I have a friend in Oregon, and she won blue ribbon at the fair using the honey from her flow hive. I don't even think she filtered it after or anything. So they definitely work. But if you can produce honey with that, you can produce honey with anything. So it just you got to keep your bees healthy. Ooh, from Chicago and Roll Tide. We do appreciate the Roll Tides around here. And I'm telling you this, I don't really want to get into talking about this virus because we all have our opinions and mine is pretty darn big. However, we've lost a lot of sports because of this, unfortunately. It need that virus. I'm telling you right now, this whole thing better be gone before college football season, or there's going to be some big issues. Let's see. Thoughts on plastic versus wood frames. I love wood frames. Plastic, the bees will draw them out, the bees will use them. I know some beekeepers who love plastic frames, and I don't understand that. We hate them because they seem to want to burr them up a little bit more on the top bars, going between from one box to the other, than they would a wood frame. They'll still do the wood ones too. I love the feel of wood. They don't get as hot in the sun. Um, they don't have as many places with small hive beetles to hive, and I like the feel of wood on my fingers. I don't like slick plastic, but bees will use them. I've got some. I probably got about 200 plastic frames or so, and the bees lay them up. Have you caught any swarms from any other than that one dead out so far? I haven't checked any of my swarm traps. I've only put like 3 out this year, and I haven't checked them. I could have all of them full. I have no idea. I really don't have time for swarm traps this year. I that's I had I had a swarm call the other day. Someone's like, I got swarms all in my bush, and I'm thinking, well, and I've learned. I'm like, send me a picture, and they showed me a picture of 2 bees, and I'm like, so where's all the bees? And they're like, there's several of them all over this holly bush, and I'm like, holly bush. Bees love holly, and the nectar that holly trees and holly bushes and shrubs produce. And they thought the bees were swarming their bush. I'm thinking a cluster that big. So that's the only swarm call that I've gotten this year. And honestly, I don't really have time to go hunt them down. Let's see. Do swarms show up in your bee yard? I lost some swarms last year. I probably lost 6 or 7 that I know of. And part of it was neglect on my part. It really wasn't neglect as much as I just ran out of time and I couldn't get to them fast enough. I was working 3 days a week, 40, 50 hours in 3 days, and then working the bees the other 4 days. And I was really stressed last year. Not doing much we're still too stressed this year. So that's why we're going to be cutting back. But anyways, have we started queens yet? We start raising queens the third week of March almost every year. It's a great time of the year. Any earlier than that, and you're pushing your luck here. But we like to start the third week of March and then continue that. I'm really going to try to do a queen rearing video this coming week. I just got to find the time to do it. Is it okay to rotate frames from brood boxes to supers after a month after treating varroa mites with OA? I don't know what the legalities are on that, Jamie, but personally, I would think that would be totally be fine. As long as you've given it some time. I think it might be 6 weeks or so. I don't know. There's certain countries where it's totally legal to treat even with honey supers on. There's research showing that it's not even showing up in tests after a handful of days in the hive. I think oxalic acid vapor is very gentle on the bees. The problem is getting the EPA and all these other folks together, and the money's got to grease the right hands in order to get these things done. Bees and bikinis. Is it worth to sell bees for income? There is more money in selling bees, arguably, than there is in honey, especially if you're talking large volumes, because commercial honey prices are terrible because we're importing so much junk from other countries. And, I'm all for importing some good honey. I mean, I love exotic honey. This Kiave creamed honey back here from the Kiave tree in Hawaii is absolutely awesome. I definitely want that kind of stuff brought in, but there's too much funny honey being brought in. So right now, for commercial guys, pollination, selling bees, and honey's kind of low on the list. It's a shame. But for someone my size, honey is really good. It depends on your market. Again, if you're in the middle of, nowhere close to a big city where you can market a lot of mass for high dollar, then probably selling bees is better for you. A little combination, I think, is great. It's always good to have multiple ways of making income because what if your honey crop's not good that year, you can sell bees. Foundation versus foundationless starter strips. Do bees build out the starter strips types faster? And let me tell you, I put in some foundation Sunday on some splits, and I put two frames of combs, and then I put three foundations in there. Most of those have drawn a significant portion of two of those foundations. Now we are feeding them. There's a little bit of a flow going on, but that's plastic foundation with a wax coat. I have some going right now that have just starter strips. I don't notice hardly any difference, if any difference at all, between one or the other. When bees are strong and they have resources to draw, they are going to draw fast. And it might not be in your frames. I haven't noticed a difference with starter strips. The only difference I see when it comes to foundation, no foundation, is that when I use foundation, it is straighter. It is more often worker brood, which is what I want. And I want those straight combs, but you can totally do it any of those ways that you mentioned. I don't think speed has anything to do with it, though. Let's see. Would you have to worry about swarms if you keep bees in the city? Yeah. I mean, I worry. I'm in the country, and I worry about them going into my neighbor's, you know, tractor that's sitting out or something like that. There's crazier things have happened, and we also have a couple people like bees got in my swimming pool, and in the city you have more issues with that because you have more people in a close area. So it's something to think about. Some cities will not even allow you to keep bees in them, so you have to watch out for that. But honestly, don't keep aggressive bees in cities. That's for sure. What do you think about salt in your water source? I think I need to understand more about that before I go forward with it. I don't think that's a bad idea. Honestly, I don't do anything with my water sources though, Stan. We have ponds and creeks everywhere around here, and my bees are always going for the dirty water, it seems. So there's probably something they're getting out there. They might need salt. There's some people that say that they do. I've yet to see great research done on that. And if anyone has, please send it my way. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, though. Totally don't. I just don't know if there's a positive or a negative effect on the salt at all. And if there is, I definitely want to know about it. Can pesticides from agriculture hurt bees? And the answer is totally. Pesticides are very egregious to honeybee colonies if they drift onto them. Um, However, there's a lot of variables there, and depends on how they're applied. Many times, if it's applied appropriately, it's very safe for the colonies, unless they are actually actively foraging on that crop, or they are very close and the wind is blowing the spray or dust onto the hives themselves. Pesticides are designed to kill bees, so they're very egregious. The problem is many people get confused with herbicides, and most herbicides are very gentle. I've had Roundup 2,4-D sprayed near my bees, and I've never seen any big differences in colony health at all. It happens every year to one of my bee yards. It's one of my best bee yards, and he sprays around my hives. I mean, we're talking within 3 feet, and they're just fine. Let's see. What is your advice to deal with pesticides? Well, I really don't have any experience with it, number one, and I really don't know what to say. This is one thing I have an issue with as a beekeeper and as a person. Actually, this is really this is as a person. I do a lot of farming. I try to do everything organic as best as possible. I was into farming before bees. What gives a person the right when this farmer has been in an area producing crops? I'm not saying they're doing it the healthiest way. I don't really like a lot of these junky things that are be put into our soil, into our waterways. However, what gives somebody the right to put in one or two hives of bees and tell this farmer who's been working that land for decades, you have got to stop what you're doing because I've become a beekeeper all of a sudden? Now, I do agree that the farmer needs to take action to prevent pesticide drift, herbicide problems, fungicides, all of those things. But keep in mind that farmer's trying to make a living, and he needs to make sure that he's not damaging other people's properties or their bees. But I see both sides to that argument, and it really bothers me when I see people on Facebook just bashing the American farmer when they've just got a couple. Even if you just we put in 10 hives of bees, and all of a sudden everything within 3 miles around our bees is automatically ours and our bees, and you just have to deal with it because we've got to learn how to get along in this world. I just had a new neighbor move in. I didn't really want anybody else to move closer to me. They're building a house. They seem like all right folks. I just don't want to see their lights at a night. I don't want to hear their car door slam. I really enjoyed my privacy. It's gone. Nothing I can do about it. So, you know, I would talk to them. I would be nice. And if you had honey, I would give them a little bit about it and just try to, talk to them about, your concerns about pesticide, but also be reasonable and also educate yourself about pesticides and herbicides. Beekeepers are way too reactionary. Cell phone towers and, a lot of people, I see this all the time. Oh, my bees died from pesticide. Oh, my bees died from herbicide. And most of the time I see the pictures and there's no indication of either one. Oh, the bees' tongues are out. Obviously, my bees died from somebody spraying. Bees die with their tongues sticking out all the time, and it's not from sprays. Sometimes, if they get sprayed, yeah, their tongues are going to stick out too. But, there's people are too reactionary, and it's not just in beekeeping. I think we've got a good indication right now about people and reactionary problems. Can't find any toilet paper, huh? Can ProSweet be stored outside in my shed? Keep it out of the sun and keep it out of the heat. It'll store just fine. ProSweet does very well. Just keep it semi cool and in the shade. I have never had any hives lost to any type of drift. Again, I have herbicide sprayed around 1 yard every year. It is my best yard every year. No questions. Maybe the spray is good for them. Let's be reactionary and say that the spray, the 240, is good for the bees. It's not. Um, but there are variables there. But I've never had any drift problems. We don't have a lot of big agriculture here, so I can't answer a lot of these questions dealing with these people. But I do believe that farmers have a right as well, and most farmers don't want to do the stuff that they're doing. But we've got to create more education to better things. And honestly, the farmers, they're kind of a slave to the markets. If we really want to change the food system, we have got to change the way we buy. If we're buying genetically modified stuff, we are spending and voting with our money on genetically modified stuff. Look at the difference between now and the 90s and the amounts of natural foods that are on the shelf. Now, are all of them truly perfectly natural? I'm sure that they're not, but we have much more healthy options now because people started changing the way they spent their money. The best way you can vote in this country or any country pretty much is with your money. Let's see. And farmers do need to. I talk to a lot of different farmers who are, you know, doing it for a living or at least a part time, and most of them are, they're putting out food plots, for the deer or for their cattle. These people, they love being outdoors. If anyone who's actually ever worked at a farm or tried to be a farmer knows the crazy hours that you have to work. We work at insane hours here. I think if many of you knew the hours that we've been working, you would be, some of you would understand. Some of you would be blown away. And let me tell you, 10 years ago, I would have been blown away too. It has been a big adjustment. And you just got to do, and we were working bees in the rain week before last, just getting soaked. Bees had to be taken care of right then. It was a sensitive moment. We had to get in there no matter what and getting soaked. And, no one does that kind of stuff without caring about what they're doing and being outdoors. Just many people don't understand the options out there. And the government and the state is in love with commercial agriculture because the big companies are greasing the right palms and they're promoting chemicals, more chemicals, pharmaceuticals. And, the only way it's going to get better is if we combat these people with, knowledge and money. Brent, you made it on, man. I wasn't sure if you were going to make it on. All right. Yeah. Money does talk. You know what? And it really, it's been interesting with this channel. And I don't know any of you on here that have done this, but there are people who have gotten really ticked off at some of the things that I have kind of promoted, um, like the Audible thing, which, if you go through there and you get a free book, that does help support our channel if you go through our link. So people got really ticked off about that because we're trying to, we get a percentage of money, but it's not, it doesn't cost you anything as long as you back out of the Audible trial. It's like the Amazon affiliate link. We put those down below. Yeah, you get to keep the book indefinitely too. So it's a win-win, I think, all the way around. Like the Amazon link, we put those down below. If people go through that and they're going to buy it anyways, or even if they say, you know what, I don't really want that Hive tool that Cayman's using on Amazon, but they go through our link and they go and buy a Hive tool somewhere else on Amazon that they do like, we still get, off a Hive tool, goodness, we probably get like 20 cents or something like that. But it adds up. And what I'm getting to is it is those little things that add up that really help us and make a difference over time. And without money, we're not going to be able to do much growing. That's just the reality of things. My time is limited. we have to make money, and if I'm not making money, then I've got to go work on a semi again, and that's going to constrict the education that we're eventually going to be able to do. Right now we are at about 10% of where I am going to be at some point. There is so much more that we can do, but a lot of it is getting the business kind of cruising. We're getting there steadily, and also just getting the time to build it up and all that kind of stuff. So I do appreciate all of you. I know many of you have personally said that you have gone through our Amazon links just to help support us. Those little things make huge differences, and it we're going to be able to provide better information because of it. And I think some people just want free stuff. I run into a lot of people here with this channel who just want free things. And if there's one thing that I have learned beekeeping over the years is that I wish I would have been smart enough when I first got into beekeeping to have humbled myself, gone and worked and left the house instead of staying in a comfortable position and gone and worked for somebody who actually knew what in the world they were doing. I would I'd be 5 years ahead of where I am right now if I'd have done that. And just that's the best way to learn is to find somebody who knows, who has experience, who truly is already being successful. Learn under them. The problem is you're going to have to work for most of those people. It's hard to find someone because they're working too hard to take the time for it. And I'm hoping that my kids will take up on this mantle after that we're done and continue with the bee business because they have such a great opportunity if they do. They're not going to have to go through the crazy, ridiculous stuff that we've had to get this business off the ground. And I think they will be blessed by it. We just got to teach them to appreciate it because a lot of times the second generation, the third generation do not understand all that go into it. So I am new to this guy says I'm new to this chat. So how often do these links come up? We've been doing them maybe once every other week, every 3 weeks since January, something like that. And to be honest, I don't know how frequently we'll be able to keep doing this as busy season approaches. So it might be once a month. I have no idea. Oh, the Amazon links? No, I don't think so. Um, when should I cut off the sugar syrup feeding? Whenever the bees have drawn out everything that they need. It depends on your situation. If you're trying to produce honey, then you need to stop feeding long before your honey production starts. If the bees are plugged with syrup and they have plenty, I mean, I don't want to see any less than 3 deeps, 4 deeps worth of honey in a 10 plus frame hive of bees. um, but if you're wanting to get them to draw combs out, then you got to keep that feed going. I have 6 double deeps. Please speak to how to split them after the flow. Should they raise their own queen? I really don't like doing that, Hope, but it can be done. Walkaway splits to me are a fairly low percentage compared to raising queens or purchasing queens from a reputable source. Typically, what I want to do, let's say I have 2 colonies that are a little over double deeps. They've been producing honey. It's June. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go in there and I'm going to, probably split the brood down the middle. And then I'm going to shake a little bit more extra bees into the split that is going to be moved. The original colony that stays in its location is going to end up with more forager bees. So I want to give a little bit extra to the split colony. And I want to put the new queen or the queen cell in the new split because that new split that's being moved away from the original location is not going to have any older forager bees. It's the old bees that are reluctant to take on a new queen. Young bees are extremely accepting of almost everything. And so when you make your splits and you introduce a queen, it's always wise, if possible, to use young bees to introduce your queens into. And that works really good. And give them a spot of feed after you've pulled the honey. Even if they don't need a lot, just give them a tiny bit during this transition of getting a queen going. Don't plug them up. You definitely don't want to. When I talk about a spot of feed, if they have plenty of resources, give them a quart of 1 to 1. Just a little feed during these transition periods, I think, really helps de-stress the bees. But there's multiple ways to do splits. I have a playlist. I don't know if many people use this or not, but if you go to our Main Tennessee's Bees YouTube page, you will see different options up there. And if you hit the playlist, we have a splitting playlist. We have a lot of different playlists. We try to organize things as best as possible so you can find those videos that you want. I have a couple splitting videos that are pretty much showing you exactly what I said. Vanessa, how difficult is it to raise queens? Do you have any recommendations for doing this? My mind is boggled with this. I was totally there at one point too. And it's just like anything else. And if you don't know how to do it, you don't know how to do it. And it's very confusing. Once you get to the point where you're doing that, can you put this in the freezer? Um, it won't be that bad. Primarily, if you're grafting, you're going to have to master the art of grafting. It's really not that hard. Women typically, I find, are better at it than men. Um, but I find that women are better at a lot of things than men. Laurel. Oh, there's the lid for the ice cream. Okay, here you go. And I think women are just they do things more tedious more often. It seems like Laurel's better with fishing lines. Well, I mean, look at these fat thumbs. I mean, I can't hardly even pull get a splinter out with these things. Look at that. Anyways, Laurel's always helping me out with that kind of stuff. Laurel grafts very good, but it takes practice, just like anything else. So you got to get out there and graft. If you're going to do it that way, I've got a playlist, and we're fixing to do some queen rearing videos, but I've got a pretty good playlist on grafting. You can see how I do it. It's not that hard. The Chinese grafting tool is a very easy method that has a little thing that I can't remember the term for it, but you just put it underneath the larvae. It's got a little plunger, and you can just push them off. But the videos will show you more. The main thing is having a strong queenless colony that is desperately needing to raise a queen, and then learning how to graft. But you also can do it without grafting. You can take a frame that has a bunch of eggs on it, have a strong queenless colony, and have one frame only that has brood on it. And it'll have eggs or very young larvae. Stick that in there, give them a little bit of feed, and come back about 8 or 9 days later or so, and cut you out some of those cells, and that'll work. Don't use plastic foundation for it. You can do it with plastic foundation, but it's kind of hard. We'll try to do some more videos on that. It's just we're having a hard time finding the time for it. Is it okay to use oxalic acid on a colony with brood? You totally can use it with brood. The problem with oxalic acid with brood is it has such a short kill window. It only kills for a handful of days. Some people think only a couple days, depending on what you're doing. Oxalic acid vapor is fairly limited when there's a lot of brood into the colony. So every time a generation of bees is emerging from the cell, mites are coming out with them. So you've got to constantly apply more oxalic acid vapor because of that. If there's a high mite infestation, you're going to need at least 5 rounds in 21-day period. At my experience is that 5 rounds in 21 days on a high mite load is not even enough. But it's very hard to control mites once they get out of control. They grow very quickly. In Holland, they hire specifically women to operate cranes, which unload the shipping containers, as they're steadier than men. Huh? It wouldn't surprise me, though. It depends on the woman. There's some crazy girls out there, too. You're not one of them. Can you make more videos for beginners? I will definitely try. And this is kind of what we're trying to figure out, is what direction we want to go. Because if we grow the operation more to 400 or 500 colonies, I'm going to have less and less time for videos. If we're wanting to do more videos that are actually comprehensive, where we take the time to plan them out and think them out and edit them and all that kind of stuff, and especially experiment, it's going to take time and it's going to take money. And our channel is not at that point yet. We're super thankful for, I can't believe we're at almost 16,000 subs in almost a year. But, we're trying to support ourselves off of the bees, and we've got to do whatever's best for the family. But I will try to do more beginner beekeeping videos. So Brad was like, I thought it was 3 rounds in a 21-day period. Some people say that. Some people say 4. I'm telling you, if the mite level is high, do 5 rounds every 4 days. And then take an alcohol wash after you're done. And you're going to find mites. People have overestimated oxalic acid vapor and how effective it is. And I believe this is why a lot of people have poor consistency in their colonies coming out of winter, where you have some big colonies and some smaller ones. And the smaller ones did not get enough mite treatment often or enough. It's enough where it didn't kill the hive, but it's enough where it weakened them and the mites were eating on them through the winter. And unfortunately, right now, the only way you can really get a good test on your mite loads is an alcohol wash where you are killing bees to get a mite count. And so a lot of people have issues with that. And I understand that. I don't really like doing that. But if we don't know what our mite levels are, then we are going to lose hives, because some colonies, for whatever reason, do better than others with the same amount of treatment with oxalic acid vapor. And I think a lot of that is due to what condition the colony's in. If there's a lot of brood in the colony, it's not going to be as effective. If a colony is going through a requeening period or something that causes them to not have as much capped brood, maybe you just made a split with them and there's more exposed mites, you get a better kill. Oxalic acid vapor, in my opinion, is not as effective as many people say that it is. And I wish that it was. I used to believe it too. But once you start actually doing the number crunching yourself and taking alcohol washes, you find that you miss a lot of mites with oxalic acid vapor. Oxalic acid vapor is not organic just because no one's paid the money to get it certified organic. It is just as natural as formic acid, which is certified organic. Yeah, and it depends on what you're talking about. Organic oxalic acid is one of the most commonly occurring acids in the world. It is in tons of things. You have some in your body. I eat almost as much as a treatment for a vapor colony in one of my spinach, my spinach and Swiss chard smoothies. So, it's a chemical, just like everything else. Is there any downside to using the acid? I have never seen any colony issues in regards to oxalic acid vapor. Oxalic acid dribble, I have seen issues, but typically it's because people put it in sugar syrup and they dribble it on the bees. And if the bees are hungry, they will sometimes consume it, and it will disrupt the gut of the colony and sometimes burn the brood. Sminage. Yeah. How about formic acid? Formic acid is too rough on the bees around here. I don't like it. Some people use it, but you got to use it within the temperature thresholds. And see, this is the problem I have. I treat 3 different times a year. It's very important that I do so. Most people think I treat too much. My bees are making honey and they're living. Much different than what they were 10 years ago when I was not doing any of these things. And I've tried treatment-free bees that have not worked for me. And not just 1 or 2 types. I love tinkering and I love trying things. But formic acid, when I need to treat in June, it is like 100 degrees, 90 degrees. It's too hot. It burns up brood. And I don't like the fact that it burns up brood going into my dearth period in summer when I need as many healthy bees as possible. Well, and then I want to treat again in fall, late summer. We can get 90-degree days in late September. And that's too late. I needed to treat well before that period. So formic acid doesn't work good for me. And even when I've done it within the temperature thresholds, it still always sets the colonies back. I'm not a fan of formic acid. Some people use it with success. I must be missing something. But formic acid for me has been nothing but a a thing that has always set my colonies back every time that I use it and doesn't really give me significantly more mite kill than some of the other things. Spinach and Swiss chard. I'm telling you, Swiss chard is one of the healthiest greens that people hardly ever eat. All it is a greens version of a beet. It's just basically beet tops, where they're selected more for green production than root production. It is great for inflammation. It is great for the human body, and it's very healthy for men, especially who are dealing with inflammation. Women do deal with inflammation too, but when I was dealing with a lot of shoulder pain, I found that eating more greens, especially Swiss chard, really helped a lot. Swiss chard, summer Swiss chard is pretty rough. If you mix some strawberries and Swiss chard into a smoothie, it's actually pretty good. Let's see. This is one thing that we've thought about before, long before I got into beekeeping. I was gardening quite extensively, doing farmers markets, and I thought I wanted to go that direction, but I ended up loving bees more. And we have thought about doing a gardening channel, just focusing on providing food for the home. We're not really focused on, producing crops, and I don't really have time. That's the thing. I don't know where we're going to find the time for that, but maybe just some of the stuff like growing tomatoes and just supplying stuff around the house and stuff like that. It's a lot of fun. Raising chickens, processing chickens, all that stuff. We love gardening. I really think that the American, well, and people around the world, we're missing out on so much health because we're eating so much processed junk. It's just everywhere, and there's health all around us, but we're not taking advantage of it because a lot of us are busy. I understand that, but some of these things are super easy to grow, and if they're prepared right, they're not that bad. And as you get older, yeah. Well, and that's one thing Laurel was mentioning. I don't know why you can't say that to everybody else instead of just saying it to me. And taking the soil is not just soil. I mean, soil is just like everything else. You got to put work into it, and there's a lot of things that we do to mineralize and balance the soil minerals, trace minerals, all of that stuff. And I love that. It's a lot of fun. And when you get your soils healthy, your plants do better, and also um, your crops are a lot healthier. My favorite veggie to grow? Ooh, that is a hard one. Swiss chard, probably because it's helped me out so much. But garlic, I love it. It's not really a veggie. I've got about 100 plants of garlic going right now. We planted them in early December. They're about 15 inches tall. We save our best bulbs every year and then we replant them. We've been doing that for several years. Garlic is delicious with steak. It's delicious with spaghetti. I mean, garlic is awesome, especially homegrown garlic. And there's a huge difference for those of you who have had honey bought purchased from the store, and those of you who have had your own honey produced at your own place. You know the significance in the miles of a gap between taste difference. It's the same thing with a lot of these foods. I'm telling you, you go and raise your own chickens and you process them, and you get a country girl to fry that sucker up for you. I'm telling you, you can die a happy man. Yeah, you really can. It's just like homemade grown tomatoes. I mean, it's totally different than that garbage in the store. So anyways, I don't I've wanted to grow ginger. I've wanted to grow ginger or turmeric as well. So I do hunt. Someone asked me if I hunt. I don't get a whole lot of chances to hunt anymore. There's a lot of deer, and some people don't like the thought of killing an animal. I understand that, but we are part of the food chain. And when humans moved into this country, we changed things a lot. The red wolf was native to Tennessee. You don't hear about the red wolves much anymore. There's not very many of them left. and they're not being taken care of to the extent that they should be. Now we have coyotes here instead, and the red wolves were, bigger and capable of, taking down the deer populations more. Well, we've pushed out bears and red wolves into several different things, and mountain lions or whatever you want to call them. And because of that, there's too many deer in a lot of these areas. I'm telling you, just up the road, I mean, there's so many deer. It could be middle of the day, 100 degrees. You throw a rock into the woods and you'll hit a deer. There's too many of them. The deer are thin because there's too many of them, and not very many people are hunting anymore. There's got to be a balance to it. And as humans, we are part of the equation. And just because you're not, some people think, well, I'm not killing and eating something, so that's good for the creatures. And that's not necessarily the case. Sometimes you need something needs to step in and help balance nature out. And we humans contribute to a lot of the imbalances that are in nature. And let me tell you, I was raised on venison. We didn't have spaghetti and beef. We had spaghetti and deer meat. We had spaghetti and sloppy joes. We had spaghetti and sloppy joes. We had venison and sloppy joes. I would prefer a venison hamburger over any type of hamburger. Laurel's not like that. She likes venison, okay, but you love venison, but you don't like it like I do. You'd rather have a beef hamburger. You'd rather have a beef hamburger for a hamburger. That's right. But get some good tenderloin with some honey marinated tenderloins. Uh-huh. Oh yeah. What are you laughing at? I make that face. Hey, why don't you do that for everybody? We'd love to see you do that face. Yeah, that's the way I am, Daniel Kearney. Every time that I tried to raise my own eggs for my own laying hens, I always ended up with a ton of roosters to hen ratio. I think they say there's some type of things that you can put in the water, maybe vinegar, something like that. I've heard different, some of these are myths probably, but there's certain things you can do to change the chemistry in the chicken to help get more hens. Anyways, we're wandering and stuff like that. I am so tired and I really haven't hardly eaten any dinner. I've got to get up early and all kinds of different things. I know that there's a lot of crazy things going on in the world right now. Keep an open mind out there, everybody. I'm not saying that this whole virus is legit or it's not legit. I wanted to get this in here. It is a problem. But at the same time, I'm concerned about our governments as well. And how, if we get too dependent, I'm not just saying this as United States citizens, I'm just saying as people around the world, the government is always hungry for control. And I think that they love this kind of thing. The news definitely does. And they want us to depend on them as much as possible. We have got to start thinking about being more sustainable, and always be vigilant. We need to watch what's going on. And I hope that every one of you out there is healthy and that nobody in your family gets sick from this, and that this gets over with soon, because college football is coming up in September. We got a lot of beekeeping to do. But anyways, thanks everyone for watching our videos. We all have so much to learn. I'm excited to get to learn it with you. If you have any comments or questions, leave them below.